بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد إخوة الإسلام عباد الله. I'd like to welcome the brothers and sisters to another episode of Heavyweight Dialogue. And I'm your host and moderator, Najeeb Al Anjelesi. And it's a pleasure to be with my esteemed participants and guests once again for another episode. Tonight, as advertised, we'll be discussing the issue or the affair of the incarcerated Muslim and how the incarcerated Muslim can be aided and or assisted while they're locked up and after they're released. Now, as usual, and what is common for Heavyweight Dialogue is that if anybody wants to participate with a comment, question, a concern, or a difference of opinion from something that they may hear discussed tonight, then the link will be left in the live chat area. And as soon as we open up for comments, questions, concerns, and thus forth and so on, then we'll enter the person into the discussion at a first come, first serve basis. So with that said, tonight, I have one of our regular participants, our brother Abu Abdullah Ismail, that will be aiding and assisting in this discourse. Unfortunately, our brother Abu Abdul Salam Siddiq Al-Jiyani isn't with us tonight, but hopefully he'll be back with us next week, inshallah. And then we also have two guest participants, walillah alhamd, that I'm very delighted that they could take the time out of their busy schedules to be a part of this discourse. That being our elder Abdul Hafid, the Imam of Masjid Mukbil in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and another elder of ours, Abu Zainab Tawfiq, who is also in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania as well, a brother that's well known for giving dawah throughout the tri-state area. Now, when looking at the situation concerning the incarcerated Muslim, when we know from varying polls and varying studies that have been done, it's stated that between 2001 and 2014, it was estimated that 250,000 U.S. convicts converted to Islam. 250,000 U.S. convicts became Muslim within that time period of 2001 and 2014. This is a very large number. The Pew Research Center did a study in 2011 where it said Muslims make up 9% of the 1.5 million inmates in state and federal prisons. Despite Muslims being 0.8% of the general US population, as Muslims in the general US population make up 3.4 million out of the general population of people here in the US. So that consequently would mean that over 350,000 Muslim there are over 350,000 Muslim inmates, to be clear. And without a doubt, from all studies and research that has been done, Islam has been a greater factor at rehabilitating inmates than any other ideology that is currently being circulated throughout the state and or federal prisons. And so when looking at this reality and these facts, then without a doubt, it's important that some type of focus is given to the incarcerated Muslim. If for no other reason than for the reason of being in accordance with the statement of the Prophet ﷺ when he stated, "Wallahu, wallahu fi auni al-abd ma fi auni al-abd ma kana al-abd fi auni akhihi." That Allah is, as it relates to assisting His servant, what His servant is as it relates to assisting his brother. This is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ from the hadith of Abu Huraira ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh. So with that being said, then I'd like to pose a question, and that question being, especially, I'm gonna direct this question to our elder Abdul Hafid, and in fact, it'll be a two-part question. To our brother Abdul Hafid, first, could you give us some background as it relates to your experiences in the prison system, one, and then two, what are some of the challenges that you see that the incarcerated Muslim endures during his incarceration and after his release? Now, barakallahu fiik, tafaddal ya akhi.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I appreciate the brother. I want to say I appreciate you inviting me. I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm supporting you and everything. And my intention is, inshallah, to help you brothers and aid you in any way I can and support what you're doing, you know, from now on. As far as you say experience?
Yes.
Well, I got a lot of experience. I got two kinds of experience. I got one practical experience as the prisoner, and then I have the experience of afterwards, you know, going back to the prison and visiting and trying to, you know, help out with the Muslims, you know, the lessons that they have there and stuff like that. The problems in there is you got the general problems that are for everybody, Muslims and the non-Muslims alike. As for the Muslims particularly, type of problems that they have is, like we have, alhamdulillah, you have the Sunnah being spread in the prisons now. And I think the biggest population of what people used to think were Muslims, they're kind of fading out. Their popularity is fading out. Not just in Pennsylvania, not just in the state prison, but I think also in the feds, that the Sunnah is starting to spread and become more familiar, and not just the Sunnah generally speaking, but specifically dawah Salafiyya is being, you know, heard in these places, and people are being exposed to that truth of the religion. Inside the prison, education has got to be the most important problem with the whole thing. As far as the struggles of the Muslims in prison is learning, utilizing their time wisely. Utilizing their time wisely. As far as learning, of course, you know, typically, ideally, it is for you to learn from a scholar. But sometimes we have to settle for less. You have to settle for a student that may visit, that may have been with scholars, that may have studied. And that is when these students are going there, well, that's the other problem, getting the students in the prisons to help out, so as to facilitate these Muslims with the proper knowledge. We understand knowledge to be the core of all good. The core of all rectification and reform is knowledge, proper knowledge. So knowledge is I guess, aham shay, this is the most important problem that they have, is knowledge and the lack of it. The second problem is, and I hate to get into this, but it's just the reality of it, it is that people who have some nibbles and some portions of knowledge, that they begin stepping out of bounds. They may have some amount of knowledge, some small amount of knowledge, but they're taking more authority than they are equipped to deal with. So those seem like the problems that's within the prison. You have the general problems that they have, you know, not having families or breaking up with the families and stuff. That's everybody in there. But as far as the Muslims are concerned, learning is extremely important. That you have people, I know you've heard the stories, if you don't know for sure, that the people go into this, they make a big deal out of every little thing, down to the wave caps, the thing that they use to groom their hair and have their hair lay down. These guys spend absorbent amounts of time on that type of stuff. Physical exercising and all this stuff here. They spend a long amount of people wonder how you get so big and your body is so beautiful. They be worried about these things. People spend a lot of time on that type of stuff. So learning and stuff, some people, alhamdulillah, they sit down and they try to learn in spite of the situation. They utilize their time wisely. They reflect on what got them in there, and they make the intention to reform themselves and rectify themselves with proper knowledge so they can act properly. And then the coming home is also the other thing that you asked me about, right? After they get when they get out of prison, it's similar. It's the same sort of problems that I guess non-Muslims would have. It would have to be employment, housing, employment, or employment first, and then housing, and then marriage, and integrating back into society, getting back into the community. So prior to them coming home, the big thing here is, in this Pennsylvania I can speak on, I can't speak on other states and other, the federal system, but in this Pennsylvania area, one of the things is that the brothers have to know, what masjid should I go to? What masjid do I go to? Meaning, where do I go to get the proper knowledge of the religion? So I'm practicing the religion with people who are practicing the religion correct and proper, based on the book and the sunnah and the understanding of the salaf. So it's not a problem if you only have one masjid like that in your city. But if you have a masjid, if you have 3 or 4 of them who are claiming Salafiyah, then they have to say, well, which one from them? Because we heard that one said something about that one, or we heard this about that one. So they have another dilemma with their court where they're not sure which one to go to. So other people, they don't have that problem. You may be in a town, maybe a whole city, a whole state, where you may only have one Salafi masjid. So as for them, when they come home, the information is simple. You go to masjid fulan, and you attend the classes there and you learn there. But in other places like this place, and I don't know how strange it is for other places, because I haven't been all over the United States, but the people that come to Philadelphia, they all say the same thing. Oh, we didn't know there was that many Muslims here. We didn't know there was that many people in the Sunnah here. We didn't know there was that many Salafis around like that. So the other one is, when they come home, knowing where to come. And I'm sad to say that going into prison to visit the Muslims, a lot of these places are slacking. They want to get a check. They don't volunteer themselves and go in there and try to educate them. If Allah Azza wa Jalla blessed us with some knowledge of the religion, it's for us to aid them. It's for us to go into the prison, take our time out, like Tawfiq and other brothers I know for sure, they've been doing it, they've been busy with that. May Allah reward them, a good reward. And give us more brothers alike. Is they've been going in there consistently. No one's giving them car fare or anything. And some of them had no cars or anything. He catches buses and trains to go to the prisons, not near our homes. And he was going in there consistently and seeing to it that the brothers were exposed to someone that studied for a while and tried to assist and aid those brothers in the most important thing that they need to reform themselves and to rectify themselves and to eliminate this recidivist type of stuff, people coming back, going in and out, in and out. And that is to learn the religion, learn deen so you can implement it and practice it. And some of the students, they want to be paid every time they open their mouths up. I'm saying students because I'm a student. I'm not saying it like I'm pointing my fingers at them, speaking down on them, or mocking the other accusations that we'll be getting, the other allegations that they launch against us when we make these statements. We're saying us. I'm talking about myself. And I'm allowed to say that. I'm allowed to say something. I'm not excluding myself. I'm including myself. So we want to, we want to be compensated for every move we make. And some of us really don't have much to offer. So these people are, from our angle, we need to continuously aid them and support them and help them. Some of the people, they tried to get money from the prisoners. They have the prisoners sending them money. They have the prisoners send them money. They're so used to it that they even try to send the money to our masjid. They send checks here, send money orders here. It's for us. We're supposed to aid them. We're supposed to help them. From the head of those things is knowledge, education, learning the religion, so that they'll be equipped to come home and do the right thing, even if the employment doesn't come right away. Even if the housing doesn't come right away, he still has enough foundation in his religion to be patient, to be steadfast. And you follow the Amr of Allah, to turn his affair to Allah Ta'ala, not turn to no disobedience. And so they come home and they have the same general problems that everybody have: employment problems, housing problems, and marital. When they come home, we're supposed to aid them with that and help them with that as well. We're supposed to aid them and support them while they're away. And when they come home, we're supposed to still help them and support them as best we can. Like I said, we have these snags, like these people are telling people where to go and where not to go. And sometimes they're making false allegations against people who are innocent, masjids that are innocent from their claims. And that causes some confusion. And the people who are preoccupied with that type of stuff, these are the ones that seem like the most pious ones in the prison. They seem like the most religious ones and the most pious ones. So people look up to them. The other inmates, they look up to them. And so these other ones are sending this stuff up there instead of just sending the knowledge the essential knowledge that they need to know. Advisement that is praiseworthy advisement, good advice, pure advice from the book and from the sunnah. And so that they can come home, inshallah, and we can receive them and we can aid them when they come home as well. But I see that these people are, we love them when they have a lot of money and stuff like that. They come home and they support the masjid, or they come and support the masjid. They're being there all the time and stuff like that. We should help them to get on their feet so they can be productive and proper people in society again. The other thing, some people have misunderstandings all along the whole time that they're away. That they think that there's no such thing as prisons in Islam. And this is a mistake. They need to understand that even in that situation, there's much benefit for them. They need to understand that if Allah Azza wa Jalla decreed this for them, that is good in it and it's wisdom in it. It's justice and it's wisdom in it. Even if they've been wronged by people. That is an opportunity, it's a tawfiq, it's a fursa from Allah Azza wa Jalla. It's a fursa al-azima that they can benefit. We need to inform them of that. So they can be thankful to Allah Azza wa Jalla that perhaps their situation is not worse. So we try to go in, we try to visit them as often as we can. And we try to sidestep all of this nonsense, all of this mess. You and I, we know what is going on between the brothers. But sad to say, it is the ones that is pushing it hardest are the ones that people look up to. They usually be the ones that are spending time trying to learn, trying to call to the sunnah and stuff like that. They're the ones that usually get caught up in that mess. So it's a little tricky, when you have a city that has, I don't know how many of them said that claim to be Salafi. I know it's up to at least 4 or 5 of them. 4 or 5 of them. But that depends on who you're talking to. Because some of the people will say, no, the 2 of them are not Salafis. 2 of those masjids are not Salafi, and the other one is not clear, and the other one is solid, but they have this problem. So you have to come to us. So we still have a little dilemma. We have a dilemma, and it's a struggle. But we're all willing to do our part, inshallah. Tawfiq and I, we kind of committed to going in there. If they want to give us car fare, then we'll take it. But we didn't ask for no car fare. We'll come in there, inshallah, and we'll still try to share, whatever we have to offer. We'll try to help them out. When they come home, it's the same thing. We will aid them and support them as much as we can. So, I mean, you got to be kind of suspicious because some people are kind of, they're crafty and, they're not really, they're not sincere. It comes out a lot of times. Sometimes Allah Azza wa Jalla exposes the insincerity of some of these people. Well, we can't be all suspicious of everybody. It's just some suspicion is allowable, not all of it. And about the one itham. So, the remainder is, it's just not sinful. Some of it is justified.
Now, Abdul Hafid, I actually have some follow-up questions to some of the things that you said. But I wanna hold on for 1 second with my follow-up questions, and I want to bring Tawfiq in and pose that same question to him. And Tawfiq, I don't know if you recall the initial question that I asked Abdul Hafid. Do I need to repeat it, or you recall it?
I have it.
No,
Uh,
tafadhal.
Before we start, I'd like to, first of all, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow all of your podcasts and with the other Salafi brothers that you have been working with. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase y'all in ilm, to make y'all firm, as well as us, and to preserve our iman, and allow this to be a continual benefit for all of the Muslims internationally. The first thing, before we start, I'd like to make mention of a very important statement to add to our beloved brother and elder knowledge, Najeeb. The Juvenile Justice Center in Pennsylvania has a censor of 158.20 are girls in their system. The rest are males, which consist of 75% are Muslim inmates.
MashaAllah.
I started first, Abdul Hafiz, Nasallah and Yubarak Fihi, wa Yahfadahu. We used to train together, and then after that, I accepted Islam. And he used to have classes 6 days a week, and he used to encourage us to study and to start with the foundation. And on the last day, he went to 2 places, Chester, Camden, and he went to Chester. At that time, Camden, they had a lot of deviant groups, and they used to come to the Salafi masajids and try to take them away. Anyway, that was in 1987, and then 2 years later, an opportunity had opened up for me to go and volunteer to the Philadelphia County prisons. And anyone have went up to the county prisons. The county prisons are like the playgrounds because everybody just came off of the street and they're still trying to settle things that they had difference with on the street. So it's real crazy and wild. But since '89, I was able to go up to the county prisons, and we had about 5 to 6 at that time. And then after that, I was given the opportunity to start going to the state prisons. And I went to Greater Fort Prison and Dallas Prison, Retreat, a lot of them. And what I noticed in all of them is what our Sheikh Abdul Hafid mentioned is knowledge. When you go up there and teach them the fundamentals of Islam, instantly they go back to their blocks and they implement it. So what I notice that most of the people that come out, a lot of them are still addicted to drugs. And because we don't offer them the proper support that they need, then they go into these drug anonymous or some, like I just received a call from a brother that I never thought that he was on drugs. And he made mention of that after they come in that facility and they wash up, after a couple of days in, they get good meals. Then they realize they have to leave those places because those places are turning them or calling them to kufr and to shirk. So the most important thing is that the support while they in there, and we have to increase the support once they get out, because we can play a major role in them turning away if we don't offer them the support. And this is a must that we have to emphasize, that we are here to aid the people. And we know as it relates to the drugs also, that our beloved brother Khalil Davis, he also have a hotline that aid a lot of people that are thinking about suicide and thinking about going back to drugs. Any type of aid that we can get, we need to aid them. And it first starts with making a salat in the masjid and making sure we are there for them to the best of our capability, and that we educate them step by step, and we show them the hospitality that Islam has, and treating them with kindness and treating them with good. These are the things that's going to aid them. But when they don't have no support, they're not coming to the masjid 5 times a day. The people, they go to the drug area, they go to the drug people, or they start selling the drugs again, or they start using the drugs. And also, you know, is something that is very important, especially we know a lot of crime happens at nighttime. We have to supply them with that advice that they need and that comfort that they need to take that Islam to the next level, and for them to be firm, and asking Allah to make them firm. And that is after Isha or at nighttime, we have to supply them with the needs that they need, meaning just talking to them, reaching out, being a true brother to them. And most of the time they go back to the drugs because no one is showing any concern. If you're not famous around here in Philly, then people don't care about you. Or if you leave a post or someone kick you out the masjid, then people don't care about you. We have to stop that mentality, and we have to give the support to these people. Because if you have done some good to them, I notice that they will stop you. If you're walking, if you're getting off the bus, if you're on the bus, they will stop you because they appreciate you taking time out to come up and teach them. And many people stop me on the street and they say, remember you came to this prison, remember you came to this prison. As one time I was in the prison, I was sick, I can't take the cold, and I was given a khutbah in one of the county jails in Delaware, and I vomit. And as I was vomiting, the guy took off his shirt and he grabbed the vomit that, while I was regurgitating, he grabbed it with his shirt. And many years went past. He said, you probably don't remember me, do you? And what brought him, by Allah's permission, closer to me is that I was being kind to him. I try to keep a principle that I smile at the people I meet. I try to be kind and be warm to them. And he came closer. And as we was talking, I think at this time we was going to go get something to drink. He was like, you don't remember me. I'm the person that gave you the shirt when you vomit. So if you teach the people the foundation of Islam, they will always be attached to you because you're uplifting their life. And they have something to be motivated for and not to turn them back to the street. So the most important thing is the education. And then when they come out, making sure that we are their brothers. And we really mean that we are their brothers. If we do that, then we'll have a better success, that these brothers won't go back to prison. These brothers won't turn back to selling drugs. But we have to aid one another to the best of our capabilities. And with this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and ask on Allah, Allah will give us the tawfiq.
Barakallahu fi. Ismail, I don't know if you have something to add to that. I want to give you the opportunity to say what you want to say, or ask what you want to ask for that matter. And that's for soon before I continue, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. First, I want to thank the brothers again, Hussein al-Tawfiq, brother and our elder Abdul Hafid, Barakallahu Fikum, for participating. The input was tremendous. Since we decided on having this discussion, I'm trying to figure out, how it will go, anticipate how it will go. I thought it was a good topic, and I anticipated going well. Pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to allow us to produce in an excellent manner. But nonetheless, I anticipated it going well, alhamdulillah. It far exceeded my expectations. As good as I thought it was going to go, once I found out you two brothers were going to be part of it, it still exceeded my expectations, alhamdulillah. And again, that's saying a lot because I already anticipated it being tremendously beneficial. Barakallahu fikum. I thank our brother Najeeb for being consistent with the program, and for cherry picking, alhamdulillah, the appropriate people to have these discussions. What I wanted to do, inshallah ta'ala, and I know we try to keep it as non-formal as possible, there were some things that I think that if the people who are incarcerated have these kinds of things on their mind and they're able to concentrate and focus on these kinds of things, I think that it'll help them, benefit them tremendously. And that is, firstly, if we look at the Anbiya and the Rasul alayhim salam, and those from al-Salaf al-Salih who were tested with being incarcerated and imprisoned, and we look at some of the characteristics that they displayed while they were in prison, and we look at the things that they were consistent with during their time in prison and even after they were released, we'll find that the key to success is right in front of our faces. So when we look at Surah Yusuf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ, two men entered into the prison system with Yusuf, alayhi salatu wassalam. قَالَ أَحَدُهُمَا إِنِّي أَرَانِي أَعْصِرُ خَمْرًا. One of them, he mentioned, he said, indeed, I see myself pressing wine. وقال الآخر إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكله الطير منه. The other one, he mentioned that I see myself carrying bread on my head, and that birds are eating from that bread that's on top of my head. And they went to Yusuf and they said, نبئنا بتأويله إنا نراك من المحسنين. Can you please interpret this dream for us and give us what this dream means, because we see you from amongst the muhsinin. So the first thing we see in the ulama, they use this hadith to show some of the benefits and the fruits of having good character and of being upon ta'atillah. And one of them that they mention is that people will respect you as a person who is able, a person who has the ability to offer them solutions to their problems, especially when it comes to their ibadah, especially when it comes to the ilm al-nafi, beneficial knowledge. When a person is upon ta'atillah and he's sincere, he worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly, it's going to have an influence on the people around him. So for our brothers who are incarcerated, specifically here in the West, when you're incarcerated and you may be in a cell or you may be on a block or a tier with a person who is, or people who are not religious, and people who don't have any iman, people who are on kufr and shirk, or even Muslims who are slacking, that if you're upon ta'atillah, in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the fruits is that the people around you will respect you and they'll look at you to be a person of benefit. And when it comes to them wanting to rectify whatever it is that they need to rectify in their lives, you'll be one of the people who they come to and choose. And we know the brothers in prison often, we hear stories, and for the brothers who are inside, they were able to see it with their own eyes, where their non-Muslims will come to the Muslims for arbitration. There are non-Muslims that will come to the Muslims for advice. There are non-Muslims who will come to the Muslims to get, to help them deal with stress and all of the difficulties that come along with being incarcerated, and so on and so forth. We'll find that the righteous people, the people who are, inshallah, ta'ala, ala ta'atillah, on obedience of Allah, that they're often the go-to people when it comes to people trying to benefit themselves or find relief from whatever difficulty or hardship they may be experiencing. So Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah, he mentioned about that. He said, فَلَمَّا رَأَيَا يُوسُفَ فِي السِّجْنِ أَعْجَبَهُمَا سَمْتَهُ وَهَدْيَهُ وَدَلَّهُ وَطَرِيقَتَهُ. That when these two men saw Yusuf in the prison, they were amazed by how tranquil he was in his character, how refined his character was, right? They were amazed at the fact how guided he was, right? How he was not just a regular person in the prison acting crazy, resembling the behavior of an animal. They didn't see that. They didn't see him fighting with the guards and getting out of character. He wasn't that kind of person. They saw his mannerisms and his methodology as it relates to him being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The things that he would say, the things he would speak about were things that they saw to be impressive, things that were beneficial. And this amazed them. His actions, Ibn Kathir said, rahimahullah, وَقَوْلَهُ وَفِعْلَهُ وَكَثْرَةَ عِبَادَتِهِ رَبَّهُ وَإِحْسَانَهُ إِلَى خَلْقِهِ فَرَأَى كُلُّ وَاحِدٍ مِنْهُمَا رُؤْيًا تُنَاسِبُهُ. They saw how good he was when it came to worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as a result of this, it's brought about respect. They saw the good character that he exemplified. And so when they had those dreams, they went to him for interpretation. So having good character is one of the most tremendous benefits when it comes to a person being incarcerated, because as Abdul Hafid said, Hafidahullah ta'ala, it's not a person who's incarcerated has to believe that this is Allah's qadr. We pray that Allah save us all from ever being incarcerated, that he bring the brothers who are incarcerated home, salimin tayyibin. But when a person is in prison, he has to look at it like, okay, this is an opportunity for me. I can actually benefit from this situation. I can make the best out of what I may view to be a bad situation. One of those ways is to give da'wah and to educate. It's going to keep you busy with khayr, and it's going to help develop that environment, because we all can agree that environment, when you find a prison system that is heavily populated with Muslims, specifically those Muslims who understand Islam, or they have people in there, enough people in there who understand Islam properly, and they're teaching Islam properly, they're exemplifying good character, and now the people inside the prison or around them are being influenced by that, that's going to make the passing of time within that situation to be better and easier and safer for everybody, everyone that's in there. Also, we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he raised the Yusuf alayhi salatu salam, in that he remained steadfast upon his religion, because he was upon the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was upon the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He didn't, as we mentioned, exemplify anything that would make his character poor or that would anger Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as a result of it, he compromised his iman and caused him to not be able to be steadfast, especially when he came home. As he said in, I think the verse after that, he said, وَاتَّبَعْتُ مِلَّةَ آبَائِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ. He said, and I followed the religion of my father, the religion of my fathers and my forefathers, the religion of Ibrahim, and the religion of Ishaq, and the religion of Yaqub. وَكَانَ لَنَا وَمَا كَانَ لَنَا أَن نُشْرِكَ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. And it's not appropriate for us to worship anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So he's expressing and letting the people know that he's upon tawheed, and he's giving the people da'wah. ذلك من فضل الله علينا وعلى الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. That is the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon who he chooses to give his favor to. However, many of us, or many of the human beings, they don't show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here we find Yusuf was expressing the fact that he was upon the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which was the religion of Ibrahim and Ishaq and Yaqub alayhi salatu salam. So this shows and proved that he was upon the obedience to Allah, and that he was calling others to the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what happened as a result of it? Yusuf became a person who he did that long stretch. And then when he came out, even before he came out, the king was in a situation where he had a dream and he needed the dream interpreted. The people who Yusuf had educated, right, alayhi salatu salam, had already gotten out. We know he had a conversation, or they had a conversation with the king. One of them let the king know that he would go and find interpretation or interpreter for his dream. He went to Yusuf because that was the person. This is from prison. So this is Yusuf affecting people outside of the prison because of his righteousness and his dawah and his istiqamah. So now the king, person of leadership, person who's significant, in somebody who, if you have a good relationship with him, that person is going to be considered an asset, especially for the brothers who's trying to come home. So now this king has been influenced, right, by Yusuf, because the one who Yusuf interpreted his dream when they were together, locked up, now remembered that Yusuf had that skill. And then when I got the interpretation of the dream from Yusuf, returned back to the king. And now the king wanted to meet Yusuf, wanted to talk to Yusuf. And then what's another benefit? When he offered Yusuf to come out of the prison, Yusuf didn't want to come out because he wanted his name clear, which means that, and this shows that Yusuf refused to cop out to something that he didn't do. Now, I'm not telling all the brothers, you take everything to trial and all of that. You got to talk to your lawyer and to your family, whoever it is you want to talk to about that. What I am saying is that we find that Yusuf alayhi salatu salam, he did not cop out to something that he didn't do. And he was willing to stay in there before he copped out to something that he didn't do. So nonetheless, we know how the story went. Once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed that his name got clear and the woman expressed, confessed to her wrongdoing in the whole incident, and Yusuf came home, alayhi salatu salam, what did he do? When he came home, what did he ask? He asked the king that he make him be the one who oversees the agriculture and the money, the finance that's attached to that, right? So he asked for a very high-ranking position, which shows that when he came home, he didn't have low expectations. And he remained steadfast upon the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he was upon before and during his bid. Before his bid and during his bid, that steadfastness and that religiosity and that obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, none of that got compromised. When he came home on the same religious obedience and steadfastness that he was in the prison system with. And what did he do? He aimed high. He aimed at a very high position within the government, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that position. He gave him that position, all because he remained steadfast upon the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we see a lot of cases where brothers come home, and when they hit the street, I remember I used to teach in a halfway house. It was a halfway house / drug program. And I was teaching there in Patterson, New Jersey. And I remember the brothers, when we came in, the brother who was in charge of the group, he was basically not a chaplain, but kind of like, the one who organized Islamic lectures and classes and stuff that may take place within the halfway house. And I think he may have done something similar while he was actually in the prison. And the brother, beautiful brother, nice brother. His education level, you could tell he didn't really know a lot. I believe he took Shahada maybe while he was incarcerated, and he was, trying to read whatever he could read and understand whatever he could understand from the Quran and the Sunnah. But his education was, sadly, was very underdeveloped and poor. And all the people around him who were looking up to him, I remember at that time, they knew even less than he did, but they were trying, alhamdulillah. So we went and we had, a few classes and some discussions, and the brothers were, eager to try to figure out what we had in place for them when they came home. All of them were trying to figure it out because they had done a nice amount of time. So finally, when they came home, I remember, sadly, it broke my heart. I saw one of the brothers who was pretty much his right-hand man. They came out, they all came out, they came to Jummah because they were coming to Jummah from the halfway house, but they had a curfew and they had to go back. So once they all got released, I believe the last of them got released, I think it was like within the same month, all of them pretty much got released at the same time. So I remember the day the last one got released, and he was no longer in the halfway house. Went to Jummah, and he came up to Jummah, and I saw, as we were leaving the masjid, a girl walked by. Now, while he was when I used to see him in the halfway house, and he would come to the masjid, very focused. He seemed to be somebody who really was trying to, develop himself and better himself in the way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that day, I remember we were standing outside the prison, and the girl walked by, a kafirah. And he looked at her, And you know that look, you know that look. He started rubbing his hands, and it's like his mouth started to salivate. You know what I mean? And at that moment, I said to myself, subhanAllah, I looked around and looked at where we were, Mission downtown. It was busy. It was like early spring. So women will start to dress the way that they dress. And I just thought to myself, subhanAllah, you know, that if we don't, these brothers need so much more help than what meets the eye, because everybody doesn't know how to remain steadfast on their own. People need Islamic subsidy. And I believe, wallahu a'lam, that if we had an environment, okay, we had something that was, you know, actually structured, we were unified within that structure, that we could offer the brothers, you know, because that transitional period that they go through from coming home, you know, being away for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and now you come on the street, especially when they caught the bit when they were young. They come home maybe at 30, 25, 35, 40, 45, 50 even. You know, even sick people in their 60s, because it's not like, you know, people are just old, or once they get to be in their 60s, that's not old. That just means you're mature. Somebody come home at 60 years old, you know, he may still have some cravings and some desires. And those people need to come home and be able to enter back into society and be, you know, reacclimated with society, and amongst their brothers, amongst people who are going to help protect them and safeguard them from evil. That brother, I never saw him again. When I saw him rubbing his hands, and it looked like his mouth was salivating when the girl walked by. I mean, it wasn't even an attempt to lower his gaze. It was like, it's almost like he was like, man, I couldn't wait to get home to do this. You know, and I didn't even know what to say to him. You know, I was kind of embarrassed. I didn't want to walk up to him and say, look, you feel Allah sold you. I froze. I didn't know what to say to him. He was a little older than me. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to embarrass him, but I never saw the brother again after that. Never saw him again after that. So, I mean, you know, it's one of the most essential pieces of advice, and I'm going to end on this note, that I think that we need to give our brothers, and that advice also needs to come from us, that advice also needs to be coupled with us trying to put the people in positions to the best of our abilities, that when they come home, they can implement this advice. But that advice is that tawfiq comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demands righteousness. He demands sincerity. He demands worship before the bid, during the bid, and after the bid. There's no delineation. There's no time when you can say, okay, I'm worshiping Allah now when I'm locked up, but now I'm on the street. It's a different thing. So it's okay to get a girlfriend and still come to the masjid. The same rules that apply to you. Ya ayyuhan nas u'budu rabbakum. O humanity, worship your Lord. That same commandment applies when you're outside of the prison. Yeah, right. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ. Fear Allah, the fear that He deserves, that applies when you're in the prison and outside of the prison. And, you know, we have to drill this with the brothers and remind them that this obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the obedience that caused Allah to honor Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, and to honor Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and to honor Imam Ahmed rahimahullah, wal Imam Malik rahimahullah, and all those other ulama from the past who were incarcerated, and they either died in prison upon ta'atillah and Allah honored them even after being incarcerated, or they came home and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored them, and continued to bestow His favors upon them after they came home. So that's all I wanted to present.
Before we continue, I just want to say to the brothers that are in the waiting room, I do see you guys. I know Hamza Jones knows how this show is run. He's been here before. He's commented on the show previously. I don't know if the other brother, Abu Hafid, if this is his first time tuning in and like this, but we will bring the brothers in once we get past some specific points that we're dealing with, inshallah. And there were some things I want to go back to some something that Ismail was pointing out. And I think this is true. Now, I'm probably the least of the brothers that are on this platform right now qualified to talk about the incarcerated Muslim for one reason, because I've never really gone into the prisons giving dawah at all. And then two, alhamdulillah, even when I had a so-called street life, I did maybe 30 days in juvenile hall and then 30 days in LA County jail. And that's about all my time being locked up behind bars. And I remember when I was leaving LA County jail, they have something called the Twin Towers. I was going down and there was a OG going up. You know, when I say an OG, guy who was much older than me, buffed out, he was going up and he looked at me, he said, "I see you leaving, youngster." He said, "Don't come back, I got all day." Right? And when I was leaving, I even had that mentality, I'm never coming back here. All right. I had that mentality as I was leaving. So anyway, the main point that I'm making is I'm probably the least qualified to talk about this subject, but there is something that I want to go back to what Ismail was saying, as it concerns incarcerated, the Muslims that are currently incarcerated. I think that for one, when it comes to the allurements or the enticements of this dunya, a lot of that stuff is removed from them due to the situation that they're in, circumstance that they're in. There is no women in prison for them to lust after, and a lot of the vices that people may have been into prior to prison are not there. And so it does give a person an opportunity to reflect off themselves, to reflect off the decisions that they've made, and it somewhat causes the person to go on a journey of self-reflection and self-improvement. And walillah alhamd, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala makes prison a mercy for many because they end up accepting Islam. And of course, you know, this is a blessing from Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala upon them. However, in stating that and looking at that, the enticements that are on the streets are not there. So they're able to focus more on themselves when they're in that enclosed environment. But then once they hit the streets, it's almost as if everything is hitting them at one time. You hear something that you wasn't hearing before. You see things you weren't seeing before. You smell things you weren't smelling before. And all of those things are you know, tug and pull at a person's nafs. And so when looking at and understanding that, then again, because one of the things about this show is we can state problems all day, but we want to start to become solution oriented in how we can deal with the things that people are faced with. Now, I'll give you an example. My father, walillah alhamd, my father, prior to him going to jail, he was a gang member in Los Angeles. Los Angeles always had gangs. Even before Crips and Bloods, there were always gangs. So my father was a part of a gang called the Avenues. And my father, and this is well known of him, my father went to jail for murder. Back then, they wasn't given life for murder, but he went to jail for murder. And during that time when he was locked up, he got with the NOI, the Nation of Islam. And he said, he told me on more than one occasion that when he was released from YTS, the nation was in full swing at that time. And he said they didn't allow him to fall back into the enticements that were waiting for him on the streets, because they had a program for him when he came out. And he was busy running that program from night to day that he didn't have time to go into this check up on Junebug, check up on Pookie, and all these other individuals, these individuals that from the life that he had left behind. He didn't have time for any of that because he was so busy pushing their program, because in his mind, their thinking back then was, we're trying to build a nation. And so I say that to say that I believe that a lot of the problems that the incarcerated Muslim faces after he's released from prison could be the fact that, one, they're too exposed to a lot of these enticements that they have been sheltered away from for so long, especially if you're dealing with a person at 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and that's for so long. The longer that they were away, the more that they were sheltered from some of these vices and the enticements that are present. And then when they come back to the streets, all of it hits them at one time. All of it hits them at one time. And so with that being said, because, you know, I think all three of you brothers have experience with dealing with brothers who are incarcerated and coming out. What can be some of the things, because it's first and foremost, it's the tawfiq of Allah for brothers that come out and are able to bear with these enticements that they're experiencing and seeing, and still hold firm to Allah's religion. You know, there's one of my best friends, a brother out of Compton, originally out of Compton. When he got out of prison, he said the same thing. He said the books that he was reading and about the sunnah and things of that nature, when he went to the masajid, he wasn't seeing that in LA. You know, the Muslims, their concern wasn't towards making sure he was a part of the body, so to speak, until he came across one of the brothers out of Farid Abdullah's community, and he pulled him out of there and took him to Farid Abdullah's community. And back then, the community was real strong, right? And that's how he was able to, you know, how his iman was able to be consolidated. And that was like his support system, for lack of better expressions. So what are things that we as Muslims could do, especially when an incarcerated Muslim comes home? What are some of the things that we can do, or some of the things that we can organize to better be a support system for our brothers when they come home? And that's a question I'm throwing out to whoever wants to take it, and Allah knows best. Yeah, I'm muted, Tawfiq.
Bismillah. The main important thing that everybody stresses that we have to have the right tawheed and the right akhlaq. When you have that tawheed, the inmates and the ones that get out, as well as us, we have to have the proper etiquette and exercising that tawheed. It's not something that we just read. And I find out most of the people, they don't really know how to depend on Allah. If they went in as drug dealers, the only thing that they know is how to hustle or how to sell drugs. We have to inform them that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the provider and he doesn't accept anything except that which is tayyib, we have to teach them the method of how to depend on Allah and know that you're going to have obstacles. But if you have the patience that our beloved brother and knowledge, he alluded to, that Yusuf alayhi salatu salam, at a very young age, he exercised all three aspects of patience, and he didn't give up, and he held that throughout his life, and he called people to it. And He didn't get revenge when he could have got revenge of his brothers. So we have to teach them how to make this tawheed, to use it in their practical daily, yani application, their daily life. How to be a Muslim, how to be a Muslim upon tawheed, how to have the etiquettes to do this and do that. We're not teaching them properly. And we're not teaching them how to have the skills. If you can't do that, then you need to turn to this. We have to supply that with them, and all of us have to support one another and all of our communities to make sure that we are supplying the community that we are in charge of or we are part of. We're supplying them with the needs that they have. Even if you don't have it, you make sure that you got that speaker to come there to educate them a week or 2 weeks so that they can truly depend on Allah the right way. And it's not something that they just pick up from the book and then after they close the book, they don't implement it. The Quran was sent down so that we can implement it after we ponder and understand its proper meaning. So I believe that's the key to our success.
Now, I don't know if Abdul Hafid has something to say. Abdul Hafid, if you do have something to say and you're trying to say it, you're muted, so we're not hearing anything. That's just to as a reminder to the brother, he may not realize he's muted. But something that you said, Tawfiq. First and foremost, you already know I don't disagree with any of that you just said, without a doubt. Unfortunately, I'm gonna give you some experiences of mine back in LA from brothers that were incarcerated, got out. We have brothers, and of course, this first example I'm gonna give is a person that had a lack of understanding of tawakkul, right? But we had a brother that was a diligent student in the classes of Sheikh Farid Abdullah in LA, diligent. He could tell you what the sunnah is and thus forth and so on. But unfortunately, whatever lifestyle he had lived prior to his Islam, fast money, fast women like this, although he had gotten married, he was still used to a lifestyle. Right? He was still used to a certain type of lifestyle. And without a doubt, again, this is a lack of tawakkul ala Allah, without a doubt. But he started robbing at night. And it came to light when the police are knocking at the door of one of the another Muslim family, because he did a robbery in one of the younger brother's car. And the car was registered and like this, and that's how they caught up with him. And of course, once they caught up with him, he went back on his way to jail. Then there was another brother, good brother too. One of my best friends, one of the brothers I used to hang with closely when I first started attending Sheikh Farid Abdullah's masjid. He was another brother that had got out. Had learned some things about Al-Islam while he was locked up. He was a reminder for me. But he was from a gang called Six Deuce East Coast Crip. And he was a youngster when he went in, and now he gets out. And, gang culture is like myself. I never went back to my old neighborhood. I rode through there one time. And I hopped out and I saw how people were treating me, and I said, I'll never go back. Because you got a bunch of people you don't know, but they all know you. You got that so-called street fame. And then the people that do know you, yeah, this is so-and-so right here. Calling you by that former name and like this. So one of the brothers, he was from a gang called Six Deuce East Coast Crip. He ended up going back to his old neighborhood. He went away. He was a part of a crew from that neighborhood that used to do bank robberies in LA. And the banks that they were hitting were real big. So, they were making a lot of money. he started going back around there to his old neighborhood, and most likely he was seeing a bunch of people that everybody knew who he was. He didn't know who they were. And the street fame got to him. And next thing you know, he's back in prison for trying to rob this or do that, or whatever it was that he tried to do. But he ends up back in prison. Now, these are examples of people who to a degree, showed a lack of tawakkul ala Allah in that regard. So I'm not disputing that. But I guess my thing would be that there has to be some type of encouragement, along with them learning about tawakkul and things of that nature. There has to be some type of encouragement, either from leadership of communities encouraging the businessmen within the community to, one, hire brothers who are getting out of prison that have a hard time getting jobs because of their records, or two, having some type of training set up where the brothers can learn skills to where they can make money the legal way, instead of looking at their past life and saying, well, I don't put in this application, that application, nothing's happening. And, I could just go on and slide back with a little C-rag and we can go do this. And thus forth and so on. I think that there has to be some type of focus in that regard as well, and Allah knows best.
You're 100% right. That's why they don't come around to the masjid a lot, because there are no programs to facilitate that. And we don't stress that. So, you're 100% right. I think we have to, think outside of just a masjid. We have to develop other programs so that we can facilitate them, but the foundation is that which they learn. And the other thing is that a lot of them are suffering from a mental sickness. The Prophet ﷺ stressed that. And, even from the hadith that you started off with, that same hadith of Abi Hurairah, when a person, relieve a distress or a burden for a person, how can we relieve that for them? Even the anger management about, la taghdab, and how to regulate, the anger, because it's going to happen. Even Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, other Mufrad made mention of the man that didn't regulate his anger. He wanted to marry the woman, and then she turned him down and decided that, she going to marry somebody else. Because of that jealousy wasn't regulated, he killed her. So, these are things that we have to, teach them, along with setting up programs, how to regulate that anger. And also that Islam deals with mental illness. Most of the time they go somewhere else for help, but the Prophet ﷺ, whenever something weighed him down, he took it to the salat. So the people, they can't relate that the salat is the thing that builds your relationship between you and Allah. So, these are the things that's really going to aid them, but somehow they're not comprehending it. And somehow as communities, these communities that we have, we're not supplying those people with the programs that they need, because if they go to a drug program, they want to teach about kufr all day long. And then if they run away, now they really want to get in trouble, because certain times they might, keep you out of jail, and provided you go to these programs. So we have to be more responsible and supply them with more needs, and teaching them these things, and teaching them the importance of marriage and the importance of a family life, and how the family life extends. People, they don't understand that. They read the statements of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud stating that if he only have 10 days left, then he want to be married. It's not just about intimacy, it's about building a family. Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu an, as Sheikh Abdul Razak pointed out, that when Abdullah bin Abbas said the best amongst you is the one to have more than one wife, when he said it, he didn't even have a string of a hair on his chin. So they are saying this, but they understand it. So as leaders and as building communities, we have to give more to them and let them know that Islam is the solution, and we have to supply them with it, you know, because they just think it's just a book thing. And then outside of that, at nighttime, they can do whatever they want to. We have to turn their thinking around, and we have to make sure that they know that we are here to support them, because if they're a Muslim, they're a part of us. From the hadith, they're a part of us. So I think that's something that, you know, if we can just highlight more, we'll have more success in the whole system, and Allah knows best.
I want to request some insight from our elder Abdul Hafid, Hafidullah. Maybe you can chime in on this ya Sheikh. There. I'm not sure if something's going wrong with his audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. He had one of them speaker things on there. Yeah, I was just saying that. Yeah, it's correct. You know, the aid and the support, helping them financially, helping them, most importantly, educationally. You know, they have to learn and stuff like that.
It was a brother.
And as far as the follow-up, as far as aiding and supporting them with the follow-up or any of it, it has to be based on our ability. If we don't have programs in place, training places and stuff like that, they still have to be learning in the meantime. Education is extremely important, not just for somebody in prison. It's important for everybody. Education is important. People have to learn. Like the brother pointed out, you know, the classes, they have to go on, they have to have constant review of knowledge so that it'll soften their hearts and so that they'll be affected by it. They have to constantly learn how to worship Allah properly so that they can implement it and it be a part of their lives and not just something while they're in one place and not in another place. And our Prophet ﷺ instructed us, fear Allah wherever you at. So you feared Allah while you didn't have access to things that you used to have access to. You would still fear Allah even if you had access to them. Ideally, if you're fearing Allah wherever you're at, whether you're in prison, whether you're inside of the lockdown situation in the prison, or whether you are out of the prison, it's upon us to fear Allah wherever we at. We have to be dutiful to Allah everywhere we be. And like the Prophet ﷺ said in that hadith, even though you're fearing Allah wherever you're at, you're still going to have some shortcomings. You're still going to have some shortcomings. But the Prophet instructed us in the same hadith, سَيِّئَاتِ حَسَنَةً تَمْحُوهَا. But follow those misdeeds with good deeds so you can erase them. And also the mannerism, the character. وَخَلَقَ النَّاسِ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنًا. And have good character manners with the people. But you got to remember, some of the people going to prison, they are non-Muslims and they may become Muslim there. And some of us, we were Muslims and we went in as Muslims. So everybody had to be dealt with according to their situation. A person's a new Muslim, he got to deal with him on the level, the level that he's on. The person is already a Muslim and he knows some things about the religion. He got to be reminded. He's in a situation where he needs to be reminded of something he may be aware of. He may have read it. He may have heard it. He may have been around people that mentioned it and reflected on it. But it didn't get in his heart yet. So he has to be reminded. And reminding is good for the believer. So I think that some people, they're going to be money makers. They're going to be responsible people. They're going to be the type of person that works and gets money and stuff like that prior to Islam and after Islam. خيركم في الجاهلية خيركم في الجاهلية خيركم في الإسلام إذا فقهوا. But he still has to learn. He has to learn to take those good qualities of earning money or being brave or being talented in this or that and put it inside the boundaries of Islamic Sharia. A lot of people, they go in prison. I don't know what the stats are. You maybe better with these numbers and stuff. They say most of them are illiterates. They don't even read or write their own language. So even if you say, well, we're giving these books to these people, that's a way. We're going to donate. We're not selling, we're making sure they get their hands on Salafi material to read from. Some of them can't even read English. And then you have other people that were very smart. They were bright when they was coming up. They were bright. They were smart. So everybody has they have some unique or some special situation that they need. Their needs are different. People have different needs. Like you said, they have some people with mental health. Yeah, well, how far is that mental health? Because they can't use that for everything. Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, hatta yufiq, until they gain their sanity. While they're sane, they're responsible. While they're sane, the pen is back on them. The pen is working when they're sane. The pen is only lifted while they're not sane. Some people they have mental diseases. They have mental problems. It's legitimate. It's no fault of theirs. It's natural. Qaddarullah. And other people, they're playing games. They're playing games. So everybody had their own special situation. Those people who may embrace Islam recently, although like us, we made mistakes and we went into prison after we were already Muslim. After Allah blessed us with knowledge and guided us, we still slip. We still slipped and we still, return back to these characteristics, these mannerisms that are outside of Islamic character mannerisms. But it's for us to rectify ourselves. Those of us who went in and were already Muslims and knew better, it's for us to rectify ourselves, to repent, and to do the repentance that Allah is talking about, tawbat an-nasuha, to do a proper repentance, and by withdrawing from whatever we're repenting from, regretting, having nadam, and having azam Allah that determined not to return back to that type of stuff there, and realize a proper repentance and rectify ourselves. Some of us were Muslims and we were criminals and we went to prison and we did something that was against Islamic law and non-Muslim law, state law, international law. We did something against the law. We were not the prophet of Allah Azza wa Jalla being oppressed. We was not any of the A'imma from the Imams that were put in prison oppressed. They were wronged. They were wrong from the beginning. I don't know if that's a proper example. Maybe we can take something from that, but we didn't go in on the same tip. That type of, to reflect on that. Oh, yeah, alhamdulillah, the patience, the steadfast, etc. They went in, they was on do-right street from the beginning. And a lot of us, we're not, that's not the proper, that's a proper example. I don't know about that example there. We can take from that, alhamdulillah, but we didn't go in there on the same level. We had to make i'tiraf that we did something wrong, a lot of us, and not be on no fantasy, we're being oppressed. This is conspiracy theorist and all this other stuff here. I'm having mental problems whenever I can get out of a situation or clench, and all this is playing games. No, we had to be sincere. We had to be sincere about ourselves. We got to acknowledge ourselves like the people, reflecting on ourselves. That's the benefit of reflecting. Or let me say, that's the benefit of reflecting on the creation of Allah, That's the benefit of reflecting, because without reflecting, a person won't repent. If a person doesn't reflect, y'all move around too much, y'all. If a person doesn't reflect, they're not going to repent. They need to reflect first to be able to repent. So some of us went in there, we was dead wrong. We was wrong. We were wrong. We knew better, and some of us, we didn't have guidance. Some of us received guidance with the permission of Allah, wherever it was at, prison, whatever, and we were sincere. So that's why this constant learning has to go. Sometimes, some of the stuff is out of our reach. We don't have the ability to be rehab, having rehabs and stuff like that. No, we don't have that. We don't have those resources. As far as going into the prison, they allow Muslims to go into prison. One of our brothers, rahimahullah ta'ala, he just passed. He was a chaplain in the prison. So now with him in there, and he already has some respect for knowledge and students of knowledge and stuff like that, he would enable the students to come in there. It's for them to go in there to get their schedule together and set a day aside and volunteer to go in there and visit those Muslims and to do it constantly. He should tell his colleagues, his fellow classmates, his fellow students, I'm going in there and I want you to go in also. I want you to volunteer some of your time as well and go in there and not just flood the prison with written material on dawah and stuff like that. Go in the prison and meet them, give them a connection to the people that study. Give them access to that. And one of the things, before I finish, I want to say, that, like Tawfiq said, that the type of treatment we should be giving them and stuff like the kind treatment and stuff, it's true. There's brothers that come here and they come to the masjid, never seen them or something like that, and we say, well, Assalamu alaikum, brother, I've never seen you before. What is your name? He says his name, and he says, and I just came home. I just got out. I said, oh, you just got out? When did you get out? He said, I just got out 2 days ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, right? You know what I say to him? I say, Ahlan wa sahlan. Marhaban bikum. Welcome to you. Welcome to you. And he just has this big smile on his face. He says, man, I really feel comfortable. I really feel comfortable. That's a big compliment to me. When one of these brothers come on and say he feels comfortable, that means he's coming back. I say, you ought to feel comfortable. This is your place. This is your place. Well, when you feel comfortable, this is your place. And we show that welcome, and we show that, that we receive those brothers and let them know. So we go in there and visit them. We try to help them as much as we can. We give them money if we have it. We give them books if we have it. We give them our time, which is more valuable than any of that other stuff. If there's anything we can do for their families out here, we try to help their families out here. Instead of trying to take somebody's wife, you try to take they take the man's woman. Take the woman, take the house, No, we're supposed to be aiding them and supporting them and helping them, not trying to take their stuff from them. Some of them are in prisons, and somebody got them trained to send money to us at the masjid. And then they get angry because we say, no, we don't take no money. We didn't ask anybody for anything. When I talked to him on the phone, I wanted to say, I said, we don't ask y'all. We didn't ask you for anything. We should be sending y'all some money. No, we should be trying to aid them and help them. And it's a combination of different things. It's a combination of different things. Aham shay, from our angle and from their angle, it's the sincerity. We got to be doing it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla. We got to be doing it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla. We're calling the people to the religion. We're calling the people to Quran and Sunnah. We're not calling the people to no buildings. We're not calling the people to us. We should be sincere, calling for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And like Tawfiq said, the people, they'll remember that. You come there with sincerity, and it's gonna affect brothers. It's gonna reflect. Brothers gonna be affected by it. They're gonna be affected by it. And I always ask the students. I'm almost begging other students, and they're more bona fide a student than me. If you're gonna say these graduates from this place and graduates of that place, they're more qualified than us. But you know what they say? I got to get a check. They got to be reimbursed. They got to be paid. So that this is, even if they had to be paid, we should pay them from this angle, from outside. But make sure that they can constantly go up there so that people can feel there is a connection between them and us. They got to realize that. They got to feel that connection. If they're not going to feel no connection, then it's going to be no connection. It's going to be a disconnect. It's got to be in this alienate. They want to alienate the people. No, those are our brothers. Those are our brothers. Their children are our little brothers and sisters. Their wives are our sisters. So we got to establish that connection, and that connection got to be based on respect and knowledge, so that they feel easy to come. They're not going to feel like no aliens. They're not going to feel like no aliens, because we're going to help them along, inshallah, and we're going to do it in a realistic way. We don't have no training camps, and we don't have no training schools and stuff like that. People out here struggling. If a man had the proper faith, if he develops his faith and strengthens his faith, he's going to be all right. He's going to be patient until he gets what he has to get, the other things, those worldly things. And we have brothers that have resources. There's brothers that are able to employ brothers and stuff like that. And they're on the sunnah, and they're with us. And we're going to vouch for him. Yeah, that brother was in all the classes. He was trying to learn when he was up there. He seemed really diligent. Well, can I trust him to hire him with my security company? Can I trust him? He's going to go on my word. He's going to show why he's going to go there. Give him an opportunity. But if we don't have no connection, we keep splitting ourselves. If we keep setting this type of example that they see us split before they even come home, they see we're not together. They see we're not together. I said, I just met you. I said, it's like I've been knowing you forever. It's like I've been knowing you forever. The same with Ustad Fareed. When I met him, it's like I knew him forever. It's like I met him forever. It's the disposition, the character, the mannerism, the way a person carries themselves. They click, they connect. We can't be having all these separations and stuff like that. We can't be having to separate. We separate the rich brothers, they separate themselves from the poor brothers. The young brothers, they hate the older brothers. The older brothers, they hate the younger brothers. No, we have to have this. We got to get ourselves together. The older brothers, they have to have mercy on the young ones, and the young ones have to have respect for the elders. Not like, oh, he only has to respect me, and I don't have to have mercy on him. No, it's a combination. We're all working together. The wealthy brothers, they have to be able to, help the ones that are poor, and the poor brothers have to know, they have to know their places. You have brothers that say, they've been talking about this here. That is the solution. The solution is learn the religion of Islam and implement it. Learn the religion of Islam and implement the religion. That's the solution. This other problems are common. They're normal problems. Employment, that's general. That's for any and everybody. That's for any and everybody. We got the edge because we have Iman. We have Iman. We have Tawheed. We have the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. All the companions weren't wealthy. All of them wasn't comfortable. They was struggling. They was people that struggled. That didn't do anything to them. They still maintain their religion, maintain the religion of Islam. We don't have them people trying to say, well, the ones that are extremists are the ones that are poor. That's not so at all. Yeah, millionaires are extremists. The ones that are extremists, they don't have no education. They got doctors. Their leaders are doctors and engineers. It's not that type of education. It's the proper education in the religion of Islam. It's the proper education. And sure, our brotherhood is supposed to be beyond them doors and gates and all that stuff. Our brotherhood is supposed to be tight. And they do see a difference between the ones in jail and the ones out of jail. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that as well. People are forced physically to be together, be around each other, be close to each other. They're forced to be together. They're forced to be around each other. And the society's kind of closed in. And if you look in the history of Islam, the cities were like prisons. They had walls. They had walls around the whole city, and they had gates. And at a certain time, they would close the gates, and they would have security there. So people was in a close proximity. People weren't spread out like that physically. Physically, people weren't spread out. So in prison, the people are enclosed. They're enclosed. They're forced to be together. Everybody is close physically, and they don't mind their business like other people. It's more Christian. It's more cross worshipers in prison. Come on. It's a lot of people converting to Islam and stuff. But there are more cross worshipers in the American prison system. But they got this turn the other cheek. They got these dove wings. They got this mind your own business. Let's go over here, sing over here and the thing. Muslims have a unity. We have brotherhood. We have a brotherhood. It's not no little corny gang war unity. It's a unity based on Tawheed. Our together is based on the beliefs. So the Muslims seem like they have more impact because they move more like a unit. And it's a tricky unit because it's not a unit of Spanish, it's not a unit of white boys, it's not a unit of blacks. All of them are together. It's not a unity of one part of Philadelphia and the other part of, it's all the whole city. When we was in them places away, the people was trying to figure out what part of town was I from. They couldn't even figure me out. They didn't know, is he from down the bottom, or is he from North Philly? Is he from South Philly? Where's he from? They couldn't figure it out because I didn't have that Jahiliyyah type of loyalties and stuff like that. My loyalty was with the Muslims, and the people seen that. And some people are weak. They come home, they don't see that same unity, and it throws them off. Their iman is not strong. They don't see that same unity. And you know, I gotta say, they gotta have weak iman to leave the religion, because you see brothers aren't, you know, close like that. And they leave. They say, oh no, the brothers don't be looking out, man. And got, you know, I got this girl, she's got me in church now, whatever. And they show some love over there. We got to get back to the you know, the whole of the religion. It doesn't consist only of beliefs and worship. You got the mannerisms, you got dealings, you got transactions, you got the etiquettes, and we have to accept all of it like Allah orders us to do. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu fadkhulu as-silma kafa. Min kulli jawanib. It's supposed to embrace all of the aspects of deen, not just aqidah, not just worship, that it got to be correct and safe from bid'ah and all that. No, what about the mannerisms? What about all that in-between stuff? How do you interact? How do you sit? How do you walk? How do you talk? How do you deal? How do you do transactions? All that also is part of our, our process of learning. That's one of the things we have to learn also. How to deal, how to interact, how to deal and how to interact. We got to do it. I'm sitting here right now and I outstretched my foot. I outstretched my foot and I put the bottom of my foot toward the brother. I felt so uncomfortable. I was trying to stretch my leg, but I felt that was aight, because in Muslim lands, a lot of them, they don't allow for that. They don't allow for that. And I was so cautious of it, even though my legs would bother me, I still wanted to make sure I didn't disrespect him by putting my foot facing to him. He probably doesn't realize, he don't care one way or the other, face my foot to the bottom of my foot to him. But the mannerisms, just respect for each other, taking care of each other, like Tawfiq is saying. And I always ask all the brothers, try to get in the system, try to go in there, go on to volunteer. If there is an employment opportunity to lock that position down, that the brother on the Sunnah that's on Salafi dawah, that's upon Salafiyah, that he should try to lock that position down, so that we can enable the brothers to see the people of the Sunnah as it practically. And then he can invite and make sure that those are the only people that's going to come in to give classes, to give lessons, to give talks. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there and somebody's going to come in here with a bald face, with a bow tie on, with a suit and tie on, and a part on the side of his head. He's going to be one of the people next to talk. We're not going to have the control over the people that come in and out of the prison, giving da'wah and educating the people of the religion. It's going to be difficult. So, it's for us to, to try to work hard. They are brothers. They're in prison, and treat them like they deserve to be treated. Treat them like they deserve to be treated, and they need to be realizing their place as well. They need to realize their place. How did they go in there? Was you already a Muslim? You realized you was out of order? Oh, you should be all about tawheed. Tawbah. You should be all about repenting and rectifying yourself. If you know everything, because all these is Philly, they think this is a university city. That's the nickname of this city. The nickname for Philadelphia is University City. It's because you have all these different universities here, huh? And even some people that haven't been to university, they think they're educated. I don't know, they just think automatically that they're educated, and they're responsible for dawah and stuff like that. So this city is unique, I think, from a lot of the other cities. I'm not aware of all of the cities, but everyone that comes to visit us, they always be astonished about all the Muslims and all the Salafi masajid, and they're always talking about it to us when they come here. So, all of these students are available. Yeah, there's plenty of prisons in the city, in the state also, that they need to be volunteering themselves to go up there and make sure that, the brothers in prison realize that we care about them and we're coming here to take care of them the best we can. We're going to give them the best thing is teach them the religion of Islam. We're going to educate them. We're going to share the knowledge with them. And if there's anything besides that we're able to give them, that's money, help their family, whatever we're able to do, if we're able to, we're going to do what we can. Just have to do what we can. It's like any other worship in Islam. It's based on ability. You don't have to fear Allah more than we're able to. We have to fear Allah as much as we're able to. We can't alienate ourselves from the brothers those brothers that have money and all that, they don't alienate themselves from them. Some of these guys go away and come back and still be rich. They're beloved by all these masjids. They want them to be in the masjid with them all the time, and they go there and grab them by the hand and make sure they're okay and everything. Anything they need, they're right there for them. And those regular brothers, like you said, that done fell out of some drug house and all this other stuff, they got drug habits and got mental problems, stuff like that. We don't exclude them. We're not in no excluding them. We want to include all the ones that all the time. They go there and grab them by the hand and make sure they're okay and everything.
Hamza, turn your volume.
Assalamu alaikum.
Turn the volume. Barakallah wa alaikum salam. Yeah, turn the volume down on the YouTube that you're watching.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. 1 second, I want to let Sheikh Abdul Hafiz finish his thought, and then we'll let you get your comment in or question or whatever it may be, inshallah. Abdul Hafiz, are you finished? Or?
Yeah. Yakfi.
Hamza.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You have a question?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm a comment, Aki. May Allah bless and preserve you, brothers, for these talks. Aki, I grew up in Kansas City and got engulfed in these streets at a young age. By the time I was 18, I was full-fledged in a lifestyle. At the age 20, I was indicted by the feds, and I was sent to the federal penitentiary. I turned 21 in the feds. Now, prior to me going to prison, I kind of had an idea of Islam. Every day, Aki, I used to watch the Malcolm X movie. I just knew this other stuff wasn't right. I'm not saying that stuff was right, but I was hip to the term Islam, Allah, Muslim, all this stuff. So I get indicted, I go to the feds, and I'm wilding in the feds. A couple Muslim brothers, they pull up on me, telling me, hey man, you need to calm down. And they kind of like pull me up under their wing. And I'm a pause. In the prison systems, no matter if it's the federal prison system or the state prison system, the Muslims, they have a heavy effect inside the prisons. A heavy effect. The Muslims are well respected. And due to this, a lot of guys gravitate towards Islam out of fear. They look for the Muslims to protect them. And I get to that later. But anywho, these brothers took me up under their wing. I took my shahada, and Allahu Alam, I don't think I was sincere at first. I'm in the joint, I'm hanging around the Muslims, but all my partners, my family, they left me. I was somebody, supposed to be somebody on the streets, but ain't nobody hitting my books. So I had a guy, he said, hey man, I give you $50, to hold some stuff in your cell. I did that. I was hanging with a Muslim every day. He came to my cell, and he smelled what I had in my cell, which was some Comer, some liquor. And he blew on me. And he admonished me. And I seen that these brothers was real patient with me and they sincerity. So, after that day, I said, man, I gotta be sincere about this and stop playing with this. And Allah turned my heart. I started going to classes, learning the deen. Fast forward, I'm on it. I'm studying, I'm learning. You know what I'm saying? Inside this prison system, going to prison is the best thing that ever happened to me. Going to prison is the best thing that ever happened to me, because when I was on these streets, I really didn't know who I was. Like the first brother that spoke, he brought up the story of Yusuf. Sometime Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he put us in positions to grab our attentions. You know, every like the hadith say, you know, we might, or the ayah say, we might hate a thing that's good for us, or we might love something that's bad for us. And you would see some brothers, they really can't, they the best brothers you want to see in prison. They know the deen, they own it, they praying. But as soon as they get on these streets, these vices, they desires, they can't control them. They can't control them. So me, myself, and I'm starting with the inside going to the outside of prison. Any brother that's incarcerated and he sincerely practice Islam, he has to be sincere with himself. He has to prepare himself before he go to these streets, because he already know what awaits him. He already know what awaits him. So the fear of Allah, I said, I don't want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to humiliate me. Meaning he done protected me. I did almost 10 years in the feds. I came home, I said, I don't want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to humiliate me. By him protecting me, guiding me all these years, bringing me back home to my family, and I jumped right back in these streets doing the exact same thing that got me into these streets. So an individual who was incarcerated, coming home back to society, he has to be real with himself. He has to prepare himself before he get back on these streets. So I spent 7 months in a halfway house, you know, stacking my money, not going around certain family members. I got me a job. The first thing a brother needs to do is attach himself to a masjid. A brother needs to attach himself to a masjid. And we know that any brother that's coming home, sex is on his mind. So he should put himself in a position to get a wife. My advice to any brother that did some time, he need to come home, get him a job, and get him a family. He needs something to occupy himself and keep his mind off these streets. We know that we can't go back to these same things that got us in prison. That's anybody with some intellect. And we know that success, tawfiq, come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala due to our sincerity. So Allah blessed me tremendously. Came home, found me a job, found me a wife, had me some kids, attached myself to the masjid. Now I'm on the administration of the masjid in my locale. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me up until this point. In any job I get, I move up in the ranks, supervisor, lead man. All this comes from Allah. In relation to brothers transitioning in the community, in the masjid, sometimes the masjid don't have a lot to offer because we leave these duties on one person or on a certain group of persons. When it's 40, 50, 100 brothers come to this masjid, you know, for Jumu'ah, or 20, 30 brothers for the Salat. We all men. We all know that the Sadaqah to the masjid is a must. It's a need for the masjid to be successful. So if we ain't, you know, giving to the masjid generously to provide these certain things, like I was in Milwaukee, it was a masjid there. They had a whole apartment building for brothers entering back in society. You know, only charging brothers 25%, a third of the rent. Alhamdulillah. These brothers, you know, they had enough wealth to have something like this in place for their community, like the previous brother before me mentioned. Everybody community ain't in a position to do something like that. But us as men, we should try our hardest to establish this type stuff with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how we can aid these brothers in prison. Once I came home, I was introduced to the Salafi dawah in prison, alhamdulillah. But I realized that all that material inside the prisons is misguidance. All them tapes and all them guys that the brothers is in prison listening to is all the individuals of misguidance. You know, these brothers ain't listening to the Salafi Talib Ilms. These brothers in prisons ain't got the real books that we should be reading and educating themselves with. So I know in the federal prison, you can order your own books. So, you know, we should be sending these brothers a list of authentic books they should be ordering for themselves and reading so they can get a proper education, because purposely the chapel or whatever you call him, he give out that bogus stuff on purpose. Like I know they don't allow the noble Quran up in the prisons. They give the one that ain't got no Arabic in it. But again, a brother, he can order his own books. So no doubt the Muslims, they have a strong presence inside the prisons. You have a lot of individuals who ain't never been to jail before. So whether they heard it on the street or they done peeped it, when they came behind the walls, they run to the Muslims. You know, everybody ain't sincere. And Allah knows best off the jump. But when some of these guys, Allah truly, you know, he turned their hearts. And these individuals, they become the best individuals they can be. So, you know, prison ain't always a bad thing. And it wasn't a bad thing for me. It's one of the best things I ever experienced as far as finding myself, being around the Muslims, being able to take a time out from all this pressures of society, being in these streets, being on drugs, chasing women, selling drugs, doing whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, but we got to make sure that the Muslims, they got the proper materials, because from my experience, the material don't be right. And brothers, they have to prepare themselves as best they can. Be sincere with themselves to succeed. Come home, get a job, build a family, and attach themselves to the masjid and fear Allah to the best of their ability. Barakallah feekum.
Fikum barakallah. That was the totality of your comment then, huh?
Yes, I don't want to hold the brothers up. Jazakallah khair.
Well, yeah,
Yeah. I don't know if you have if you wanted to if you had any comments or replies to that Akh Tawfiq. If not, then I'm gonna bring in the next brother. We're bringing in people on a first come first served basis. I believe the brother Khalil was next, and then after him, Calling Harding. So, did you have any comments for that? Or anything to add to what the brother just stated, or?
excellent. It's good. Next comment. Barakallah fikum.
Fikum barakallah. So I'm going to admit the brother Khalil now. There was a comment before while Khalil's audio is syncing. There was a brother that added a comment about the masajid should be the hub of the brothers that get out of prison, and there should be a network and things of this nature. I'm assuming that he meant network to, deal with the brothers' needs. I'm assuming he meant by that the masjid provides this. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Give me 1 second, Khalil. I believe that what he was saying was that the masjid should provide this. And my thing is this, that brothers don't need the masajid to establish things that could be of help and benefit for Muslims that are directly related to financing or training of some sort, and thus forth and so on. Is it good to have the support of the masjid? Yes, but I'll give you an example. If you have a group of brothers that attend a particular masjid and they see that there's always brothers spending a night at the masjid because they're homeless or they don't have some place to go, right? You don't necessarily have to get the permission of the masjid to establish some type of transitional home to alleviate that problem. Of course, you want the support of the masjid, or you want to keep the masjid on board that, look, we're doing this, but you don't need the masjid's permission, and you don't need you don't need the masjid's permission before you can embark on doing something that you know will help the community in general. And so I think, and Allah knows best, in my opinion, people need to get out of the realms of always depending upon the masjid to do something. If you have a group of brothers that are capable of fulfilling a need within the community, they may have the resources to organize and arrange something. They should go ahead and organize and arrange something. So we already have commands from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. Aid one another upon bir and taqwa, don't aid one another upon sin and transgression. You're already given a command to assist one another in this regard, in a general sense. And other than that, from the ayat, that might be visible. But I think one of the things that happens is that people become handicapped from doing good because they're always relying on a certain body of people to do it, regardless if it's the admin of a masjid or some other body of people. They kind of make them an authority over themselves, and it's like, we can't do it unless they give the okay, or we can't do it unless we have, they're good. We're in good standing with them as it relates to doing this project or that project. And Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala knows best. Tafadali ya Khalil.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The prison dynamic is it's very complex, right? There's a lot of moving parts to it. And from the others that's in prison, right? The first part of that battle is preparing yourself for the transition. You don't have all day, like the brothers told you. You have a release date. There's certain preparation that takes place, especially if you have a support system outside. So with that being said, it's duty bound before the brother even gets outside and begins to act with his particular masajid. It's duty bound upon him to prepare himself. And that means his spiritual preparation, learning things that he needs to learn, and actually addressing himself, because, being someone who's in prison, a lot of brothers don't really spend time cultivating their soul and address particular spiritual, mental, and emotional ailments that plague them. They spend a lot of time, they work out and walk the yard and chewing the fat and talking about a whole bunch of nonsense, right? Instead of really looking at man in the mirror and actually addressing the things that plague his soul, and having those conversations with himself, having those conversations with his Lord, and making sincere dua, and really trying to repent from some of the things that led him to that predicament. So that's one of the first steps in that prison life, right? Before he even gets out to the masjid and starts interacting with everybody, that's the first thing he needs to do. The second thing he needs to do is, once he come out to the masjid, right? We used to have this program in the Bronx called Delegation Established to End recidivism. And it was a group of brothers who they came, some of them were in the first, they made the transition, and they were just there, right? They had established successful post-prison lifestyles. They had families, they had jobs. Some of them were chaplains on Rikers Island. Some of them, they just knew how to interact and mingle in society as Muslims, dignified, law-abiding citizens living an Islamic lifestyle. So they would come together, and it was a support group, right? Because a lot of brothers, they may not have had no drug addiction or none of that. Their addiction was the street life, right? And so what we have to realize too is that most criminals were not wealthy criminals. So we have to remove that misnomer like a guy only know how to earn a certain amount of money. Most guys in jail were not making money. They were just criminals. They just were getting by and they weren't successful. A lot of times it's really other diseases that plague. It ain't really a monetary issue. Most guys that went to prison were poor. They weren't making money. We had to remove that misnomer that everybody went to prison was a big time drug dealer. Most of these guys were poor. They were robbing hand to fist. They were living with their girlfriend. They were getting high. They weren't successful. They weren't even living a life as good a life as a working man. Right. So that's that. So when a lot of time with dudes be using that excuse, I only know how to one way to get it, bruh. That way you trying to get it don't even work anyway. So you need to just remove that variable out the whole math equation, right? So that delegation established in recidivism, what they used to do, brothers would come around once a week and they would talk about how their transition is, but also there were tools there, resources. Like when we came around, they'd be like, yo, they got this training going on down here. Yo, go down to South 40 down in Manhattan, they got this going on. Yo, this other over here is hiring. This place got a maintenance program. Yo, such and such, they got this electrical training program. Because whether or not we believe it, so many brothers don't know what's available in their particular area in terms of resources, educational training, and employment, right? So that's another thing, that whether or not it's a particular masajid, but just having whether or not it's a clipboard or somewhere or somewhere for a brother to check in that came home from prison. So like I tell brothers when they come home, like, in prison, it's a big thing after Juma, everybody kick it, right? Everybody hang out and kick it. But out here after Juma, everybody's breaking out. Everybody's going to their next destination. Brother got to go back to work. He got to go back with his wife. He got to go grocery shopping. So a lot of time, brothers who their first experience the masjid post-prison, it's like a shock to them because ain't nobody just standing around waiting to kick it with them. Everybody's just going in their own direction. So one brother one time told me, yo, I don't feel that vibe. I don't feel connected. I say, you don't have a sign on your forehead that said, I just came home from prison. You have to go and introduce yourself to the masjid, to the administration, introduce yourself, let them know who you are, where you came in at, and then put your feet involved, get involved. Let the people see you. Like one brother told me, I'm looking for a wife. I said, you have to establish yourself first. Ain't nobody gonna just turn no woman over that they entrusted for to help to you as a husband until. And in case in point, a sister brought a brother to the masjid to us in the Bronx one time. We was sitting in front of the masjid, and me and Imam Farouk Rahimullah before he passed away, right? And we were up in the Bronx. And so they had this thing, they used to say, we call these brothers 90-day wonders when they come home from prison. And I said, what is that? He said, because when they first come home, you see for the first 90 days all the time, and then they vanish. A lot of brothers, the streets catch them. So she brought this brother. We knew the sister, and somehow she embarked and married the brother. He came home. He did a bunch of time. And so she brought him. She said, yeah, he's real knowledgeable. And we want him to teach. Can he teach here at the masjid? And so the man looked at me and I spoke to him. I said, nah, he can't teach you. I said, one, we don't know the brother. Two, let him come around, get involved. So, he had quoted all these books he had read, memorized. I said, that's good. I said, come around, get involved, and, let us see. So the sister was upset with her. She stopped coming to the masjid. She started holding classes in her house with this particular brother, and people were going over there, so on and so forth. Lo and behold, to shorten the story, the brother ended up on Juma Friday robbing the barbecue joint in Harlem and going to jail. The point is that he just couldn't make the connection between prison and the streets. That without that leadership and that position he had in prison, it didn't resonate, right? It didn't connect in the street because people are looking for a lot more. Like your character is a premium on your character. People have to see you working. They have to get to know you. So a lot of brothers come home. That's in prison life. See, in prison, you could come around and impress the entire community being articulate. It ain't about your character. You ain't got to know nothing. If you swift and you can quote some things, the brothers put you on a pedestal. So a lot of brothers in the penitentiary, when they come home, that's another thing that they have to deal with. That is really about your deeds. It's about your action. It's about people seeing you over a period of time and developing good credibility with the believers. So the whole prison thing, man, in closing, is I advise brothers honestly to prepare themselves in there for the battle. And like Farouk used to tell us, he said, I look at prison as shadow boxing. I look at prison as a fighter in training. You in training camp. You doing all your jogging, you hitting a heavy bag, you hit speed bag. And when you come out, that's like going into the ring for your first real fight. And that's the first thing I tell brothers. Start preparing yourself in there, your spiritual battle, addressing your ailments, because everybody is fighting a different demon. So try to submit, and then and while you're in there, have your people send you out things of skills and vocations and trades and jobs and businesses that you can start reading and preparing when you're in there. So when you out, you have some sort of a plan and a blueprint, and you get the ground running. And then I tell brothers, when you come out, if you don't have a job, your job is looking for a job. If you don't have a job, your job is looking for a job until you get a job. And surround yourself with the believers at the masjid. Let them get to know you. No one is going to treat you as a best friend and invite you around until they see you. You frequent the masjid. You at Juma. You volunteer. They see you pick up a room. You volunteer for security. You at the classes. You are putting forth that upper hand is better than the lower hand. The people see you. Then they know you by name. You develop some trust with them. You develop some credibility with them. And now the believers see you. And then that's when the doors, in my opinion, and what I've seen from brothers from my own experience, that's when the doors of barakah open up and things just start expanding for you. And you develop that relationship and camaraderie of people that now you exchanging from your homeboy on the street to brother Abdullah in the masjid, to brother Yusuf in the masjid, to brother Ismail in the masjid. From all your homeboys in the street, now you have flipped it to that type of environment. Because if you don't surround yourself with them people and you keep rocking with them people and hanging out with dudes in the street, eventually the filth of their ways is going to overtake you. Because we have spent more years living a certain way than we spent living as a Muslim. So, in closing, that's it, man. I just advise brothers, prepare yourself while you in the joint. That for the real fight when you come out here. And when you come out here, man, you gotta have a tough chin. You gotta be able to take the hit, because you're gonna get hit. It's not, I took my shahada, or, I'm trying to do right. And boom, the first time Shaitan hits you with a jab or overhand right, you down. Even if you take the knee, just know you got to get back up, man. And as Imam Ali Rashid Rahimullah used to say, hold the line. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Appreciate your comment. Okay, so I'm going to, I don't know if you have something you want to add to that, Tawfiq. If not, then I'm going to bring in the next person, inshallah.
Next one, inshallah.
Okay, so we're admitting Colin Harding. And looks like he's muted.
Assalamualaikum, can you hear me?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, Vic, how are you doing?
Everything's good. We contact.
Okay, let me turn off my YouTube because I'm getting echo back here. Just give me 1 second, Sheikh.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, hayakumullah, hayakumullah. First of all, I want to thank you for doing this. It's a definite positive direction. You know, it's a very sharp turn in the right direction. I want to say that, and I want to express that. And despite any differences that we have to come together as a community. That's the most important thing. We have to come together as a community and do the right thing by our people. Now, for me, I'm not so much into the anecdotal, arbitrary type, you know, jargon and motivational speeches. And I like to deal with facts and figures and actual solutions to real problems. You understand? And if you look at the Black community, particularly in the States, the 13th Amendment was drafted in 1865, okay, December 6, 1865. And this was the first amendment that was drafted, the actual 13th Amendment. And it was answering the question of slavery. And the question of slavery came up. And in the 13th Amendment, it states that basically no man can be enslaved, whether indentured or otherwise, except through the prison system. You feel me? Except through the prison system. From that time, okay, our 400 plus old enemy has done every possible thing to make sure that Black people were kept in as a permanent underclass and used as low cost or slave labor. The demographic of the United States, 13.4% of the population in the States are Black people. And at any given time, 40% of the prison system in the States is populated with Black people. But not only that, 25% of all the world's prisoners come from the United States. So how do you get to the point where 40% of your own population of people of the prison population is from your own people? At any given time in the States, you're going to have almost 2 million Black men in the prison system. 2 million. That's more than some cities. You understand? And we have to realize that not only is there a drive or a will to keep this prison industrial complex going, whether it was through you know, the war on drugs, whether it was through whatchamacallit, 3 strikes, whatever it is, the destruction of the Black family. The Moynihan report in 1965 stated that at that time, this was 1965, that 29% of Black families were from single mother families, and Dr. Moynihan in 1965 called 29% a disaster. At 1965, he said that. Now it's 72%. You feel me? So all of these parts are now the engine behind feeding this prison industrial complex, and even more. We can go on and on and on, right? Like we can, you know what I'm saying? There are like so many things we can talk about, right? However, now that we have this Islam, and we've had particularly Salafiyya here for a better part of 2+ decades, we need to move past anecdotal and what you call it, theoretical Islam. We have to go past that now. It's not enough to say follow the Quran and the Sunnah and have a correct Aqidah. We've been there, done that. That's not enough anymore. When the Prophet ﷺ, was in the battle of the Khandaq, for example, right? Did he tell his Sahaba rather, follow the Quran and the Sunnah and my methodology, or did he himself grab a shovel and dig a trench with his blessed hands? He dug trenches with the Sahaba, together with the Sahaba. We are at the point where we have to dig trenches. This idea that we're going to pray away our problems, just pray, and you know what I mean? And all our problems will go away. That's from Christianity. A Muslim doesn't act like that. A Muslim digs trenches. A Muslim gets his hands dirty. So now there's a report that came out, when was that? I want to say it was last year. But this report essentially it said that the number of mosques in the U.S. overall are growing, except for the African American mosques. The African American community are the only mosques that are in decline. Only the African American mosques. So my thing is, if you understand and you know all of these things are happening in our community, there comes a point where your excuses kind of run out. And after you've finished all of your excuses, the question comes down, what are you going to do about it? Are we going to remain doing the same thing with the same type of destructive behaviors? Like when we were a Christian, like when we were a Christian, we used to always pray for this, this type of heaven and pie in the sky kind of thing, you know what I mean? And we also we were praying, trying to pray our problems away, and a change gonna come, you know what I'm saying? Sam Cooke stuff, right? That was the whole type of mentality behind the Black church, to keep you docile and pacifist and these type of things, right? We don't have pacifism in Islam. We don't. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was going for jihad, he would pray, then he would go. He didn't just pray and wait, lay and pray style, this type of thing. You know what I mean? We know we have these problems. What I'm suggesting for, particularly for the Black Masajid, right? Because other people groups, they do this. I've seen it. Is that they set up programs for particularly the brothers coming out of prison, like, for example, training programs for trades or whatnot. Now, I want you to look at the scenario, okay? In the Black community, the Black Masajid, they kind of take their money to kind of build Masajid or whatever, pay their imams, and it becomes a giant money pit where poor people are donating into these Masajid, and the money is not doing anything for the community. But if you educate your people, if you use that money, right, as a nonprofit, to educate your people in some sort of trade or whatever, right, and then that person goes and learns a skill, like some sort of skill, and then he comes and he builds his own wealth. Is he in a better position now to give to the masjid? Yes or no?
That's a question.
Go ahead, Sheikh.
I'm thinking that was a rhetorical question. You're going to keep going. It's kind of obvious. The answer is kind of obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's an investment into the community itself. We need to invest into our communities. The imams are in privileged positions because they know the movers and shakers in the communities. so they can tell who is who and what is what, who knows this thing, who knows that thing, right? I don't know how it is in the States, but in Canada over here, the government basically likes for these type of organizations to train people in skills because it takes the pressure off of them. So they will give tax write-offs and these type of things. You feel me? So we need to move in these type of directions. But what is happening is that just because you are an imam or a talib, it doesn't necessarily mean you have the skills to run an organization. And we see other people groups coming into the West, and they are benefiting off of the struggles of Black people and moving ahead while Black people are either in the same spot or going behind. You feel me? And this there's a point in time where all of this has to change. I don't want to, take too much of
your overall point is understood. What you're basically saying is that it's time for us to start taking the asbab to achieve what would be beneficial for the general community instead of talking about it in a way where it's just going to fall out of the sky.
Exactly.
That's understood. I think that this particular program or this live stream that we've been doing for the last however long we've been doing is fairly recent, but the point of this is to try to encourage or be an encouragement for people to start to look outside of the box of what the norm has been and inspire people to actually start looking at the asbab that can be taken for particularized issues that we're dealing with on the show. We dealt with polygyny for 3 shows. We dealt with failed marriages. Now we're dealing with this, and we'll be dealing with something else next week, inshallah. And that's the whole point of this program. If you notice, there's no prolonged talking and quoting of evidence, because we're trying to keep it at a surface level where everybody can understand and hopefully benefit from it and take the gist away from it. And that is, look, it's time for us to start actualizing what we say we believe.
Exactly. And Sheikh, you made an excellent point earlier today with your father, the situation with your father when he went to prison and he got with the nation, and after he went out of prison, and up until this very day, the nation does the same thing, right? There were programs for him to make sure that he did not go back out on the streets. So why cannot we duplicate something like that? There's nothing preventing us from that, but there is something preventing us from that. I've said this many times, right? That not only have we been infiltrated, right, but our whole communities have been dismantled. Because I remember back when Salafia was growing and everybody was interested in it, and we had a lot of respect. I remember those days, right? And I remember how we had brothers who owned businesses and were I remember all of that. And then all of a sudden, right, Salafia turned took a 180 turn, and then we didn't have that anymore. And we had marriages being broken up intentionally, splitting up of families and whatnot. And then we had this culture, this insane debaucherous culture of breaking up families and whatnot. You know what I mean? So it went from one extreme to another. And we have to understand that there will always be people trying to dismantle any good that we do. We have to understand that. We have to know that, right? And at the same time, just because somebody else is doing something and is doing something better than the way that you're doing it, doesn't mean that you can't take the good from what they're doing and do it as well. If you say you're Salafi, if you say that, if you believe that, then
that's if it doesn't conflict with the truth and guidance.
We already know that. This is not a non there's no argument here. There's no argument.
No, the
You know
reason
what I
why
mean? But what happens is that.
one
Go ahead,
second.
Sheikh. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The reason why I say that is because some people act adverse to if you say something like, okay, this group of people had this program and it worked. But if you name the group of people, they start looking at what the ideology of that group of people was,
Exactly.
as opposed to, yeah. So that's what I mean when I'm saying when I said, because sometimes people go left field and get stuck on the ideology of a particular group
Thank you.
instead of a particularized action that they did that was beneficial for them at that time, that could be reduplicated because it doesn't conflict with truth and guidance.
Exactly. You know, so if you look at the Salaf, when
Tawfiq, you're trying to get a word in, or you keep
go
raising?
ahead, Sheikh. Malesh, I didn't mean to cut the brother off. Go ahead.
Yes, Bismillah. No doubt about it, those facts that you stated, Salah Yubarak Fikum, is true.
We'll figure about it.
But one thing that came to Sheikh Saleh and Fawzan, the non-Muslims, they're not better than the Muslims. And we know because of the ayat, Sharrun Bariya. But the problem is that we are deficient. And if you look at the incident of the prisons, that from them taking wealth out of the communities and to the end, or it doesn't have to deal with that. One thing that we can see, that the population of the inmates, majority of them are young. And one of the things that we are missing and that we are deficient in, we don't emphasize that which the Prophet ﷺ used to emphasize in teaching the youth. Because the youth are the future of our generation. We had Abdullah bin Abbas and we had Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, for example. They came to the Prophet at the age of 14, wanting to fight jihad at that young age. So it indicates that their household and their relatives was teaching them Islam. So we have to tonify our situation and don't have that deficiency. And we have to focus more on the youth. Not saying that other people don't deserve attention, but we have to focus more on the youth, because if you give them the proper tawjihats like the ulama have did, then they're going to be the ones that are going to be successful. They're going to be the ones that are going to teach us, going to educate. So that's what we have to do. If we want them people not to go to prison, we have to focus on the youth. And we have to show them, that was the point, Earl, we have to show them how to truly depend on Allah. And it starts with educating them, but also showing them. It's just like, for a small example, a person that want to learn how to drive, you're not going to teach them that whole book because they might not come back. You want to teach them a little bit, and then you're going to put them on the road. So we have to do the same thing. So these are the most important things. Get the youth and teach them and educate them and show them how to show benevolent treatment to the parents, how to upgrade themselves, how to upgrade the, I think this is the focus. Get the youth, and Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. I just want to.
And that goes, you know, even though we having problems in our black communities, it goes for everyone, because the Prophet made all of them, he made all of them, you know, he showed the concern for all of them, and he came to the dawahs for all of them. So, you know, is even, for example, you know, we have many examples from the African people coming over, and also the Arab. When they come over, they're about educating the youth. So we just have to advise one another more and be more concerned with other communities as well as our communities to uplift, and that we have a standard, and that standard, we have to make sure that we put everybody, without, you know, of course with hikmah, but we have to make sure that everyone adhere to that standard. And that's the standard of the prophet and his education and being a husband and being a father and being a leader, you know, and we have to remind everyone, Allah knows best.
One of the things I think what you're saying is correct, Tawfiq. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I think that one, when you, I'm gonna add to what you said. Our problems are multifaceted, and so we're fighting. We have a lot of detrimental issues taking place within our communities on varying different levels. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that now. I'm not disagreeing with you when you say focus on the youth, because without a doubt, there does need to be focus on the youth as well. They're the next generation, and they're going to carry our legacy, whatever legacy that we set for ourselves. But the reality is, that is an issue, and then there are a whole lot of other issues that need to be dealt with. And you know, we just had our problems are multifaceted. When we're looking at, first and foremost, when we're looking at the majority of converts here in the U.S., people that are accepting Islam, 49% are coming from the Black community, and there's no doubt concerning that. That's a fact, right? When we look at the masajid that are underserved in the U.S., I think the brother said something about Canada. I don't know what's going on in Canada, but in the U.S., the masajid that are underserved, underfunded, and that's for Fason, the majority of them are in the Black communities. When you look at the majority of the Salafi communities in the U.S., they're predominantly filled with Black Americans, right? So one thing that I think brothers have to separate when dealing with these issues is that a lot of times when you're in the masjid and you're preaching to people that look just like you, all right? And because with that being the case, we have issues amongst us that's unique to us as it relates to our social issues, our economic issues, and thus forth and so on. If we have to address some of these problems head on for some type of viable change to take place. Not saying that if you talk about it, you're automatically on some type of qawmiyya, or you got or you hold on, I got distracted because I'm trying to let the Sheikh Abdul Hafid back in. He said he was cut off somehow. So, but anyway, the main point that I make, because we understand that Islam is for everybody, Salafi is for everybody. Whoever comes through the door of Al-Islam is a brother. Al-Mu'min, Akhul Mu'min. We understand these things. We don't deny any of that. But the reality is, if we go to the Somali Salafi community in Stone Mountain, for instance, or in other places, they're clearly talking about the issues that are directly related to their people, and they're talking about it in unambiguous terms.
Yeah. Thank you.
And nobody's going to say about them their own qawmiyya with that stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm not saying that that's what you're saying. I'm not saying I don't want anybody to. One thing I want to make clear is I say nobody needs to speak for me. I speak for myself. No, so nobody should assume that I said this and meant that. You know what I'm saying? Because whatever I say is what I meant. All right. And I'm saying this to the listening audience right now. You know, to the listening audience. So one of the things that I think that we have to come to the realization of is that, you know, we're facing problems that are a direct result and byproduct of our general culture. There's a general culture in America, and you can make it like an umbrella, and then under that culture, there's a lot of subcultures. And quote unquote Black culture is a subculture under that general culture, general American culture. And even within Black culture, you have the so-called thug culture and a lot of other things. And a lot of times, some of the issues that we deal with as Muslims are a direct result of what we brought in as baggage from that. A lot of the reasons why marriages are deteriorating. If we look at the statistics in the U.S., when they speak generally about Black folks getting married, it's on the all-time low. Then when you look at the marriages, I believe the statistic is 1 out of every 4 Black women will be married, and that's to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's to anybody, and that's just not to Black men. That's just to anybody.
Not to mention that Black women are the only group that are being divorced or getting divorced more than they're getting married.
Yeah, but not only that, but they're the ones initiating the divorce.
They're the ones initiating it, exactly, at an 80% clip.
Yeah, and this was a point that I was about to make. There was a reason why I was saying that, because when we look at situations here amongst the Muslims, the khulas that are being requested like crazy and things of that nature, you see that same behavior amongst the Kafir women of this society and culture. And I don't want to make this about the women, because I'm just using this as an example. You see it being like a carry-on into the behavior after Islam. Mm. And so that's what I mean, you know. I hope that wasn't confusing, and I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible to the listening audience.
And I want to jump in here before I bounce, inshallah. That's, again, for me, it's not about anecdotal comparisons. We all understand we have to follow the Quran and the Sunnah with the understanding of the Salaf. We all understand the importance of Aqidah and Tawheed and these type of things, right? However, we shouldn't confuse the understanding of these important issues and then make it the solutions for everything. You know what I mean? Like, for example, the brother broke his leg. Oh, follow the Quran and the Sunnah with the understanding of Salaf. The brother got into a car accident. Follow the Quran and Sunnah, understanding of Salaf. You know what I mean? When we have an issue, when you have a problem, you solve that problem, right? You solve that problem. When people hear follow the Quran and the Sunnah with the understanding of the Salaf, this is like, again, it's the same type of thing that was done to us when we were Christians. It's the same thing. You know what I mean? Just worship Jesus and wait for Jesus and the change gonna come and all this kind of stuff, and kumbaya and civil rights march and all this kind of stuff, just to keep you slow and pacified and not working. You have to work. If you're about Quran and Sunnah and the understanding of Salaf, it requires work. Not only does it require work, it requires a hell of a lot of work. You feel me? So now we have these issues. Are you willing to invest in counseling for put your money into getting a full-time counselor? You know, like, for example, the brother Najeeb, again, as I mentioned, he's in a privileged position because the people look at him as a leader in the community. You feel me? And because the people see him in that light, that means that he has connections that other people don't have. And this kind of shift into helping the community is welcome. We welcome this, alhamdulillah, and it's something that's needed. You know what I mean? And because he's taken this route, he should be supported in this. He should be supported in this, despite whatever differences we have. So that means the people who know things, who understand how to do certain things, the educated brass, they should be reaching out to Najeeb, say, I have this skill, I have that skill, how can I help? And Najeeb, now he knows, because he knows the community, he knows where these people can help and how they can help. You feel me?
Yeah, but just from the standpoint of clarity, nobody's doing that.
Yeah.
When you say I'm in a position of privilege, if that was the case, I had 2 goals ago, we would have a neighborhood by now. Well, Barakallahu for your comment. I want to bring in the next speaker because
Thanks for your kindness.
For everybody listening, people have to understand why I yawn so much and why I start looking tired after a while is because I've been up since 2:50 this morning. So so you guys have to excuse me, right? But that's why I look.
One last thing, Brother Najeeb, about because you mentioned, well, because people think when you say, for example, what you said about the Nation of Islam, they go instantly into dogmatic mode. They instantly go into dogma, like, oh, they're, the kuffar and they're like this, right? At the which I believe was the time of Umar al-Khattab, I think, right? But it could have been after him, right? When they were conquering, Persia and whatnot, right? These people weren't Muslim, and they took, armor technology from them. After that, the Muslims, they conquered India. They took the number 0 from Mushrikun. They took the number 0. And because they took that number 0, they were able to excel in mathematics and sciences and physics and these type of things. And for that whole, what the Europeans call Dark Ages, that was actually the bright ages of Islam, because the Muslims, our Salaf, were taking the best parts of other people's cultures and using those things in order to better the Muslims. You understand? We look at other people and all we see is dogma. Oh, this person is like this. Oh, this person like, that's all we see. You feel me? Oh, this person said this. Oh, you can't take anything from him. So if he says 1 + 1 is 2, you can't take it from him. That is a quirk in the Black community, right? That quirk, it's directly from the way it goes way back to slavery, when the slave masters used to pit slaves against each other, right? And even to the point where they had names, like they have like mulatto and whatever, and they have the house slave and the field slave and whatever. You know what I mean? And this type of culture, we need to end that. We need to end that. We have to focus on, like the Sheikh was saying, what Allah is saying in the Quran. How do we fix these problems using the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he never, ever, ever ostracized anybody. He never ostracized anybody. He never insulted people's manhood or whatever. He didn't do that. He wasn't like that. If you say you're Salafi, then okay, why don't you just follow this example? And that's well, thanks for your kindness for allowing me to get my comment in, and I do appreciate the work you guys are doing, and may Allah bless it. I mean.
Okay, I'm gonna bring in the last brother, Suleiman, and I believe that's Prospera I Trade, right? If I'm not mistaken, the brother from Prospera I Trade. Well, his audio is syncing. I don't know if anybody has any. Ismail, you haven't been as talkative this evening as you usually are. You have any feedback for us?
No, man. Everything is, mashallah. I'm just listening, learning, man. I think that everything the brother said, people called in, was more than beneficial. Only thing I probably would add or reiterate is, this is like our previous discussions. This also highlights, this conversation highlights the importance of us being established, financially as a community. That whole thing about economics and making sure that we are as a ummah, but just our portion of the ummah, just people here in the inner city or people in in the United States, however you want to look at it, whichever portion of the ummah we want to concentrate on. Here in the West, a lot of us have similar situations. The Salafiyun in the West, one thing we all pretty much have in common is that we lack finance. Some of us may be doing better than others, but for the most part, we lack finance, and to have something in place that will be in the service of people who are incarcerated, their families, and people who just come home, those things, in order for us to have something that is actually of benefit to them. And again, I'm talking about besides being able to teach them and educate them with classes and so on and so forth, and maybe some books, reading material, pointing them to that's websites, so on and so forth. That's tremendous. But making sure that that they have that environment, okay, and they have that they have access to, you know, that kind of environment. It's gonna cost some money. You know what I mean? If we had like apartment building, for example, for brothers who just came home, you know.
Yeah, I think that's definitely needed, like transitional homes for home.
Stuff like job, job training, all of those things that will, you know, practically make their transition better and make their coming home better, and kind of, you know, people come.
But see, let me cut in for 1 second. But see, this is what I said earlier about when people depend on the masjid to be the only vehicle to do those things,
right?
That starts to become a problem too. Because I give you an example of a brother in LA. There's a brother in LA. He's in my father's peer group. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Give me 1 second, Suleiman. I was just making a point.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, but you online, so a lot best. But let me make this point that I was making. This brother that's in LA, I've never known him to have worked for somebody else. Never. And my father told me the same thing. He says, as long as I know this man, I've never known him to have a job. But what he meant by that is work for somebody else. This was a guy that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala blessed to be able to pick up product and be able to sell it and make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. What this brother started doing, because he as an individual saw not just brothers coming out of prison needing help financially, but you have brothers accepting Islam and like this that needed help financially. So he taught them how to buy and sell products. There was one brother that did 10 years in the California State Penitentiary, right? In one of the California State Penitentiaries. He taught that man how to make money on his own without getting a job with somebody else. Now, this was an individual. This wasn't somebody who was an admin of a masjid or anything of that nature. This was an individual who taught people that. He taught his sons that. His sons have crews of people just buying and selling things. And this was a guy whom Allah blessed to, you know, be able to buy boats and houses, because he's one of those type of guys that like toys, you know, boats and houses and things of this nature. So my thing is, a lot of times, if we look at it like it's upon the masjid itself to come up with all of this stuff, I believe that to a large degree we'll miss the mark. You know, we'll miss the mark because the Muslims, we have a lot of talent. We have a lot of talented people, you know, that know how to do things. There's a brother, Abu Corporate, who we had on last week. Abu Corporate is a brother in LA. He's not an admin of any masjid. He used to train people on bookkeeping, brothers in LA on bookkeeping, how to keep books. And I remember when we had the live stream last week, he said something like everybody should know how to bookkeep as a side hustle in case they need some money. You know, these are things that individuals can be teaching people who are released from prison as a life skill that they can take with them and make money with, and that's for so on. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the masjid, but I think from one perspective, brothers have to have more concern for incarcerated brothers getting out. If you don't have a real concern, you could have a lot of different things you can as it relates to a life skill that you can teach them. But if you don't have any concern for them when they're released, and to a large degree, you're looking at them like they're insignificant, or or something to this effect, then you're not aiding them in building themselves up in that regard. And I think to a large degree, we have to stop with all the masajid that are established. They're doing what they're supposed to do, in the sense that the place for them, for brothers and sisters to pray, to learn, to memorize Quran, and that's for someone that's available for them. Walillah alhamd. And sometimes, depending on depending on the masjid and who may be over it, the admin, that may be all they have to offer.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that now, because the masjid isn't providing it, that it can't be provided. That's all I'm basically saying. I'm not saying that the masajid shouldn't have what they need to have in it. I don't want you or anybody else to understand that I'm saying that. What I'm basically saying is that if the masjid isn't providing certain things that people feel that brothers and sisters need, then the person who is able to enable others in that regard doesn't need the masjid's permission to do that. That's what I'm basically saying. Sulaiman.
Naam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Thanks for having me on, brother. May Allah preserve you, brothers. Once again, I'm always learning.
You chimed in before, right?
Yeah, for sure. About twice before.
Okay.
So I just wanted to comment, because the brother Imam Tawfiq, Hafidullah, he mentioned about the youth, and you brothers are talking about the adults. Once again, I can only come from my personal experience. Both of my parents were smoked out. So on drugs. And so I was in the system at 11. Foster care system. And then I committed an offense, and so then I became part of the juvenile justice system. So by 13. I took Shahada when I was 15 in 1990. Reason I'm bringing this up is because, at the time I was in a juvenile boys home, right? And I took my Shahada, while I was in that home. And so my story, I think I relate to it, and I think it's connected, and it might give you brothers some insight. Because when I went to the masjid, obviously when I was accepted and everything, as a young man, but knowing my story, the brothers knew my story. My parents were on drugs. I was in juvenile offenders, boys home. Beyond teaching me religion, teaching me the deen, Arabic language, because I learned how to read the Quran, so on and so forth. Besides teaching me the deen, nobody took a personal concern, in my life as to, guide me on how to use the deen, or, no one came to me and said, okay, what you gonna do with your life? Are you going to college? What are you gonna get a trade? Don't you want to get married? No one took a personal interest and gave me that example that I needed, or that guidance that I needed. I needed somebody to hold my hand, because there's a lot of things I didn't understand. And, I had to learn a lot of things on my own. Alhamdulillah, I ran across, certain brothers, individuals who individually, took an interest and gave me some good advice and helped me out. But, just, reflecting on it, over 30 years later, I can say for sure that it definitely would have helped if someone from the community, or some of the elder brothers in the community who were in the first resurrection, and they had families, they had raised children. No one ever came to me and offered me help, or or guidance as a teenager. And you know, I could have used it for sure. And that's it. And you know, so that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. That's my comment, bro.
No, Barakallahu Fik, your comment is appreciated, Akhu. We appreciate your comment. Barakallahu Fik.
And I would like to add. I mean, and even you know, so you know, I started off, you know, in the Imam Muhammad Allah's community, you know, but I even went, you know, to, you know, the popular Salafi community at the time, and you know, it was the same thing. It was the same thing. So I want to make it clear that it wasn't okay. Well, them brothers was deviants, you know, so that's why they didn't tell it. But I went to the popular Salafi spot at the time, and I spoke to the Imam, and you know, it was basically just come and kick it, you know, come around the masjid, you know what I'm saying, and that's what I was told, you know, just basically come and kick it, which at the time, you know, I mean, I'm probably not the smartest guy, so you know, when they told me just come around the masjid and be around the masjid, you know, I didn't really understand it, you know, because I'm looking for answers to questions, because I asked a specific question, and that was the answer I got. Now,
Barakallahu Fik, Akh.
Fikum barakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. With that, then I'm gonna give the brothers the opportunity, the participants to give their final remarks. I'll start off with the elder, Sheikh Abdul Hafid. Looks like he's muted. Well, I'm not sure if he may not be with us. I'm not sure. Abdul Hafid, are you still there? It looks like he's in. You're muted. You want to? Oh, okay. I think I muted you by accident. I think you unmuted yourself, and I pressed the button. You there?
I'm here.
Do you have any final remarks before we close out?
No, I didn't have any final remarks. I just want to say I appreciate you again, little brother. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. You know, I didn't sign up for no, you know, us black people. I'm with the Muslims, period. It's not no black, white thing. I'm not into that. I'm not into that. I know where I'm from, and I know where I'm headed. Inshallah, I'm headed for the hereafter. I ain't, you know, I'm not into this black. That's not my struggle. My struggle is Muslims, period. I'm with the Muslims, all of them.
No, I believe we all are. Nobody. I don't think any. The message
the brother
wasn't.
was like he was direct. No, the brother was doing his little survey. He was going into his survey, and he made some mention about some with the black people this and all that. No, that's not my call. That's not my call. I'm here with who I'm with, and whoever it was, whatever color they are, you know, I'm with whoever I'm with. I'm with the Muslims here and the ones over there as well. I don't have those type of I don't have them type of hang-ups like that. I thought you made a little comment on alhamdulillah. It was cool. You was being real smooth about it, but that type of stuff there, we shut that stuff down. We don't accept that type of stuff. We aren't binded to those type of loyalties. Our loyalties to the Muslims, generally, all of them. I don't care if it was a hillbilly, white boy, whatever, Chinese, Korean. We don't have those type of hang-ups. We don't restrict ourselves, and we don't exclude ourselves like that on that type of calam there. I don't know if that's going to benefit any, what we have here, our community, us as black. No. I accept you. I accept anybody that claims the religion of Islam. I accept it. I don't care if he live near me, if he speak my language, or he doesn't speak my language. Sheikh Bass said the people of the Sunnah are together, regardless of their languages or wherever they're from. And the people of innovation are divided, regardless of how close they may be. We don't have them type of things. Language-wise, all that there. We don't exclude people. Our struggle, we have this special, unique struggle, us as a people, and don't restrict ourselves like that. That's not an anecdote type of approach. We're with the Muslims, period, wherever they're at. I appreciate all you're doing, and I wanted to advise the students, the bona fide students, or less than that. I wanted to advise all of them, inshallah, to busy themselves with knowledge during these times of trials and tribulations, like the ulama advises. During these times of trials and tribulations, to busy ourselves with beneficial knowledge. So, like I said before, I hope that they will, inshallah, volunteer to go into these prisons and interact with these brothers and make a connection that those people need to have. So when they do release themselves, they already have people that they can rely on, that they already connected to, because we try to establish that type of connection. Go into prison, wherever you at. If they allow you to go in there as a volunteer, go in there. If it's anybody that when they need a chaplain, someone to represent Muslims, they need to go in there so that other people of the Sunnah can get in there easily. Otherwise, you're going to have all types of people coming in there with all types of calls and all types of propagations.
How's the situation now, and as it stands after the pandemic and like this? As of right now, is there
right now? I just got contacted by the county prison system, and just contacted me and asked me. Well, they let me know that they're getting ready to open the prison back up for the volunteers to come in representing religion and stuff, and it asked would I be willing to come back up. And as far as this upstate, I don't know, because we just lost a brother, Allah yarhamuhu, his name Rashid Salahuddin. He just passed, and he's been working in the prison system for a while as a chaplain, and he was inviting all the brothers up. All the brothers of the Sunnah, he was inviting them up there. So he just passed. We just buried him a week ago, less than a week ago. Allah yarhamuhu. And hopefully, inshallah, we get another brother on the Sunnah in place to enable us to be able to go in there, and so they can oversee the dawah, make sure that the proper information is being distributed inside the prison, making sure that the tawheed, etc. Digging trenches. That's another thing. Digging trenches and stuff like that. Yeah, that came after tawheed. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not getting down and digging no trenches until tawheed was established, because they weren't fighting. It was first tawheed. That's the core of the religion. That's work. That is the work. That is the work.
Barakallahu fiqh.
We don't, that type of trivializing that, and then kept mentioning all this other stuff about some antidotes, and it ain't about no antidotes and all this other stuff here. No, establishing tawheed is not an antidote. Establishing proper worship is not an antidote. That's the key to our success. That's the key to our success. Proper beliefs and worship is the key to our success. In prison, out of prison, before a person goes to prison, that's the core of our religion. We don't trivialize that. We don't trivialize it. We don't undermine it. Oh, antidote.
Barakallahu fiqh. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to.
No, alhamdulillah, I enjoyed it. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, no, because I know you're a hard guy to catch up with sometimes.
No. I'm with you, my brother. Alhamdulillah. I'm with you. I love you. Alhamdulillah.
Barakallahu fiqh. I love you for he whose sake you love me for.
Barakallahu fiqh.
I'm gonna turn the mic over to Tawfiq, and then I'll let Ismail get the last word, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Tafadali ya Tawfiq. You're muted. You got to unmute yourself.
Cool. Yeah, unmute.
The point that our beloved brother Najeeb mentioned, that everything is not attached to the masjid, is the same message that needs to be highlighted, and that is, yes, the brothers have to come to the masjid because it's the central place, but also outside of the masjid, we have to show them the practical application, and this is one of the things that we are falling short in. We have to show them that we love one another, we aid one another, and the only way that we're going to
Is it just me? Or I don't hear the brother anymore.
No, me.
Tawfiq, your sound, you went out. I don't hear you.
Is the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is the only driving force that's going to aid us in accomplishing these goals, to minimize the people going in these prisons and the ones that are outside of the prisons to keep them out. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give all of us the tawfiq and to allow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to strengthen our efforts and to make dua for one another. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq.
Barakallahu fik ya akhi.
Allah.
تفضل يا إسماعيل.
Bismillah. I just wanted to close by saying that the theory that we have when it comes to rectifying our problems, like these are realities. You know what I mean? Everything that we mentioned, we all mentioned, different aspects that are essentially fundamental and necessary for everybody to gain success, like a tawheed and its establishment, and understanding the Quran and the Sunnah according to the way of the Salaf Salih, and establishing it like that, right? Sincerely. We ask that Allah gives us certainty and sincerity and consistency and istiqamah. And those theoretical concepts that have to be applied are real, and that's really where our success lies. I do think, however, that and there's ulama who have mentioned this in their discussions, when you talk to Mashaykh, there are some unique and specific characteristics that we have to deal with here in the West. And I think not taking that into consideration and approaching it properly, again, none of it is free or void of the obligation of establishing Tawheed, establishing the Quran and Sunnah, as the Salaf did. This is without a doubt clearly the solution to every problem, and to deviate from that one bit is always going to result in a failure. But at the same time, look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he told Mu'adh bin Jabal radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, let him know the kind of people he was going to, right? He let him know you're going to people from the people of the book. So that the first thing you do, first thing you call them to be, and you wahidullah, that they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Now, if you notice, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he told Mu'adh the first thing that he should call the people to was Tawheed, that calling people to Tawheed, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would call anyone, when it said Ja'far ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and those people who made al-Hijrat al-Ula, they had the same instructions. They had the same concept. When they got to al-Habasha, they called the people to Tawheed. And anytime sent anyone, anywhere, anybody when is a representative of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they always bear that same concept of Tawheed, right? But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam still let Mu'adh bin Jabal radiyallahu ta'ala anhu know what kind of people he was dealing with, because each constituency is different and they have different things you got to pay attention to. Doesn't mean the dawah is going to change. Doesn't mean that what's going to save them is going to change. It means that they may have some specific issues that have to be taken into consideration while dealing with them. So when we look at what the ulama have advised us regarding this point, like Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he mentioned, I remember he mentioned three things. It may be a fourth, and if so, the brothers can add to it. But I remember him mentioning clearly three things that a da'i has to know. He said the first thing he has to have knowledge of, the thing that he's calling to. Ilmu ma yad'u ilayh. He has to have knowledge. So we call to Tawheed, we call to the Quran and Sunnah. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to understand Tawheed, you have to understand the Quran, you have to understand Sunnah. So when you call to them, with basira, right? With clarity and with clear, sound knowledge. Next thing he mentioned, he said you have to have, and this may not be in order, but I remember him mentioning another thing you have to have is kayfiyat dawah, how dawah is given, the mannerism that is given. For example, that your dawah is consistent with your character, the level of patience you have to have, avoiding being insulting, making things difficult. Like the Prophet ﷺ said, Yassiru wa la tu'assiru, bashiru wa la tunathiru. make things easy, don't make things difficult, give glad tidings, don't tell people things going to depress them and run them away, right? So he has to have knowledge of how to give dawah. And he mentioned, and this is very significant, he has to have knowledge of hal al-mad'u, the circumstances that the people are in. So in every community that we deal with, and if we specifically talking about trying to help the Muslims develop and rehabilitate themselves, these communities are different. For the brothers who are in cities like when I was in New York, for the time I was the imam there, I realized that whether we want to, the sad thing about it is that the communities are very segregated. Okay, and even the people of the Sunnah, they have a level of segregation that people don't want to deal with it because it's heartbreaking, and it's easier for us to just ignore it, and also because being segregated and having these weird isolated issues, it's disheartening because, as Abdul Hafid said, Hafidahullah Ta'ala, we, the people of the Sunnah, are not really busying themselves with issues of nationalism, colorism, and so on and so forth. The sad reality is what I've seen, and this is, my experience is very little compared to my elders, such as you brothers, like Abdul Hafiz and Abu Zainab, Hafidhakumullah. But what I've seen in my little experience is that the brothers, and even the people, the Salafis that I know, other nationalities, their general concern for the Muslims are there. And the accommodation for the Muslims in general within the community is there. But their brothers do have there are certain things that they deal with, that each people deal with within their community, right? As a tribal member or as a countryman, it's not necessarily racially based, but the circumstances are a little bit different, and they just by default of who they are, they know how to cater to those issues and deal with those issues better than somebody on the outside would. That's why when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا, Allah is the one that made us into shu'ub and qaba'il. So us being from this person being from this tribe, or this person being from this particular group of people, that doesn't necessarily, mean that us as people who are not from that tribe or aren't from that same nationality, from that same background, should be excluded from anything in terms of the brotherhood now Islamic development. But it does clearly imply that there may be some khasa'is that particular community, and I mean community meaning the people who grew up in that region and understand that region, there are certain things that they're going to understand and know how to treat specifically, right? That they may know that thing better than me. So if I come from, let's say, for example, a community where the people deal with, like in certain parts of the Muslim world, I believe we discussed this before in another discussion, different platform, same platform, but different time. There are some people who, within their culture, these are some of the people who Sunnah get affected by this. They're not practicing it, but it's still something that sadly they have to deal with in their community, where certain people are known as, this person is a Sayyid, right? And he's some exclusive individual in his community because his lineage traced back to this person, allegedly traced back to this companion or this person or that person. So because of that, he has a different social status. Because of that, the people in the town or the area may treat him a particular way. That's an ailment, right? That's something for, as one brother told me, he said, he was this in total disagreement because the brother loved the Sunnah and so on and so forth. He just said, look, honestly, it's a sad thing. He said, but if I come in the room because of who my tribe is, he said, according to our practices, people are not supposed to sit on chairs if I sit on a chair. When I come in the room, if I sit on a chair, everybody's supposed to sit on the floor because of my social status. He said, I'm not in agreement with this. He said, but that's something that my people deal with. Now, me being somebody from United States, in the city, we don't have that. We have a different struggle. That's not something that protect the community that I come from, in terms of my tribe, in terms of my background, that's not something we have to deal with. That's germane to him and to his people. Now, when it comes to combating that issue, his knowledge of those issues and how to treat that ailment within his community is going to be way more superior than mine. A Spanish brother told me one time, he looked me in my face and said, he said, Ismail, the part of Latin America that I'm from, He said, it doesn't make a difference what you come with, how thorough you are, how articulate your dawah may be. My people, and it didn't sound like he was praising this. It was more, it sounded like it frustrated him. Nonetheless, he said, from what I know of my people, they'll never accept you coming in there giving them dawah. He said, because you don't look like them. Now, I'm not, again, this is what he told me. So I'm like, so his thing was, listen, people from my community and my ethnic background, we have to learn the Sunnah because these people are so ignorant. They're not even going to listen to you if you come there with brown skin and I'm Hispanic and I look a particular way, this place where I'm from. They're not going to take nothing from nobody. We've been trying to give dawah. He's a very nationalistic. That's an ailment within this community. He knows how to treat that ailment better than me. If I were to get in the plane and go to his country and try to deal with that ailment, Allah knows best. And with tawfiq min Allah, tabarak wa ta'ala, Allah knows best. He may be able to deal with those people a little bit better because he understands them. So we have issues within our community, and it's just my opinion. We have issues within our community where we live at, where we grow up dealing with people. Let's see if we look at some of the negative aspects of our community. People are drunk off of Christianity. People are drunk off of pictures of who they believe is Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salatu wasalam. There are people who are literally drunk off of alcohol and intoxicated and inebriated from, due to drugs and alcohol. A lot of people in my generation come from broken homes. There's a lot of different ailments that somebody, because I've seen brothers come into communities and they just don't understand. And this is not even, unique to color or what we're talking about. Somebody grew up in the suburbs, got the same complexion, same whatever, hair texture, whatever it is that this person has. But because he's been isolated, he grew up in the suburbs, he had both parents, he never experienced anything in the street and so on and so forth. Then he comes to the inner city and tries to deal with those issues. A brother may advise a person, let's say marriage counsel, for example. You got a brother, he just married a sister. Mashallah, the sister prays, she fasts, she's trying to get herself together, but she's coming from a different background. She's a new Muslim, been Muslim 2 years, and she's steadily trying to develop. But let's say the girl has a problem where, she watches TV watches certain programs on her phone. They already have a child, 2 children together. The brother sees his woman developing and growing and gradually getting away from this nonsense. Okay, but she still had this little thing where she may watch some little foolishness on TV that she shouldn't watch on her phone. A brother asked one time, I saw a brother ask, and he asked the brother who, mashallah, Salafi person we respect, love, student knowledge. He didn't really understand like where these people are coming from and the kind of progress the sister had made prior to. So the brother said, well, my wife, sometimes she asks me, she requests that I take her to the movies. And we already know that that's not something that we approve of or appreciate. But because the sister had actually made a lot of progress from where she was prior to where she was at that moment. Now to us, we look like, okay, she came from, being in clubs, getting drunk, dancing, partying, hanging out, to now she's covered, she's praying, she's fasting, she's taking care of her husband. But that part of her still exists. So she requested her husband to take her to the movies. The husband didn't take her. And inshallah, my husnul dhan is that the husband, perhaps he explained to her, look, sis, we trying to get away from that, blah, 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 blah. And she took it. But before we get to that point, she asked one of the students of knowledge again, who doesn't really, in my opinion, I know the brother, he doesn't really totally get the narrative and understand exactly how to deal with some of these little, idiosyncrasies that we have within our communities here in the West and the urban communities in America. He said just like this, at a lecture full of people, full of reverts, brand new Muslims, dudes who probably memorized 3 surahs. So now he think, and I'm Mufti Shaykh al-Islam Allama, right? He said that in the room. The brother got a mic and said, if that was me, I would say, Sister Salam Alaikum, and I would divorce her. So my thing is, when you make a statement like that, it to him, maybe where he's from and maybe where he's been and his experiences, that would be such she would have had to have dropped and plummeted so much as a person to request from her husband to take her to the movies that it makes sense where he's from that he was really bothered like that. But for us, it's like, okay, that's bad, but I know where my wife, where she came and where she's at now. So I'm not going to approve of it, but I'm going to deal with a different kind of way because she made so much progress. Somebody from the outside who doesn't understand our narrative here in the country, in the urban community, or those brothers over there in China or those brothers over there in Russia. You look with the Russian brothers and you look at they're so shell-shocked, a lot of them. They've been affected by so many different, it was such an aggressive environment, war and so on and so forth. You'll find
the Chechen brothers.
Yeah, brother, just that whole
Chechen
environment,
brothers.
those sub areas of Russia. When you sit down and you talk to some of them, the Salafi ones, the ones that are really educated, that's one group. But the ones that may be Salafi, but they're not really, they haven't been cultivated all the way. They're not straight up like Takfiri Khariji. Some of them are, sadly, but some of them, they're a little too militant. So they're not thinking about harming anybody, anything like that. But it's just their approach is a lot more aggressive. It's a lot more militant sometimes. Again, they're not crazy. They're not politically motivated. They're not running around trying to harm anybody, nothing like that. But it's just you hear that their approach and the way they talk is a little too aggressive. If I were to say on this guy, كأنه تأثر بالخروج وبالخوارج وكذا, and we need to leave him alone, that's a little crazy. But I might get weirded out and uncomfortable because why do you act like that? Why does I hear like the tone of something like this militant behavior? Why does it sound like that? But another Salafi brother educated from that community will be like, listen, I know why it's like that. You know what I mean? I know the things that we experienced, the way we grow up, it affects us differently. So he knows how to deal with it. So everybody in their community has to be intelligent enough to know and to find the balance between, catering to some of the specific and unique needs of your folks, the people you grow up with, the people that's in your village or your town or your city, right? Your age group even, right? And the ailments within that community and how to fix them. And, being nationalistic and looking at it like you have an agenda that's based off your complexion or based off your nationality, and so on and so forth. I think that we got to find a balance. In my opinion, going to either extreme will harm us. If we try to pretend and act like, it's okay for us to unite or it's okay for us to have an agenda based off our ethnicity or our national origin and so on and so forth, that's going to be one harm and that's going to mess us up one way. And if we try to, pretend and act as if us being from a particular community and understanding our constituency and understanding and taking into consideration that they do have certain elements and certain issues that, yes, we deal with the Quran and the Sunnah and Tawheed in general, but there are going to be some vices, there are going to be some problems that another person from outside of this community, they're not going to be able to detect it. I've seen so many situations where brothers, they don't know how to deal with. And the sad part about it is all these other communities, they're dealing with their issues. The brothers that have come to the United States and don't have, papers, there's a whole, these communities,
It's my
immigration. Yeah.
I can give you a simple example of what you just said. I was at Mashal Movement. Farid Abdullah was there. And there was a bunch of other brothers there too, right? Now keep in mind, Farid Abdullah is from the Bahamas, born and raised in the Bahamas. So there was a young dude that had just accepted Islam. And like I said, just accepted Islam, meaning when he walked in the masjid, he had on blue khakis, he was sagging, blue Chuck Taylors, gray t-shirt, blue bandana rag tied around his head. So he was tattoos. So he was fresh in Islam, and he was dressed crazy. That's how we termed that back then, right? So he's in the masjid, and we're all talking, and he says this. As he's talking, he says, yeah. Kada wa kada wa kada. Oh, my mama, kada wa kada wa kada. And, he kept talking, right? Now, we all know, because when he was talking, it missed the brothers, but I heard it.
Right.
I said, so as soon as I heard it, I stopped him. I said, listen, we don't do that. We don't swear by our mothers or anyone else. We only swear to Allah, by Allah, But so Farid asked me, he swore by other than Allah. What did he say? I said that when he used the term on my mama, that's what he was doing. He was swearing by his mother. And so that's why I'm giving that example to illustrate what you're saying. But this was something that was a cultural expression amongst us that Fareed didn't catch.
Right.
And then Fareed told me about another time that was like that, right? He told me about a story where he said that some guy walked, a Kafir walked up on him in the community. Yeah, man, you heard about that cat that got killed last night? And Fareed was like, he understood it linguistically. So he said the guy just kept talking about it and talking. And yeah. Kept talking. And so Fareed said he started to get this understanding, like, why are you so emotional over a cat? And he said he didn't realize the dude was talking about a human being until the guy said he still had a cigarette in his mouth. He said the guy said that. He said he looked at the guy and said, "You're talking about a human being?" So he didn't.
And this is, these are the things that that have to be taken into consideration without going to the extreme. Because I'm telling you, all of these other brothers, and being in New York, when I was a man there, one thing I realized I got a chance to do was I got a chance to like intermingle and be around different people from different, backgrounds, Salafis and non-Salafis, just being in the masjid. And the brothers, and not even trying to be nationalistic or prejudiced or segregate the communities, they just look, it's natural. This is what they do. It's natural. It's like, look, I'm here in America. I got to figure out if they see someone, let's say one of them come from overseas and they come inside the masjid and it's let's say 5 groups of different people in the masjid, different nationalities, just sitting together, just having regular countrymen conversations, right? If they see, or people that come to the masjid, there's a variety. The community is all different kind of brothers in the community, alhamdulillah. This brother may come from Palestine. If he sees another brother from Palestine, his communication with him is going to be different. He may say, well, when did you get here? He's not going to ask us that. He's going to ask another brother, then when you get here? And then he may say, okay, well, blah, blah, blah. Whatever immigration process that they may have gone through, whatever marital issues they may be going through in terms of how they're going to get married, the customs and all of that kind of stuff, those 2 guys, even some of the Salafi ones, you'll find that they have so much in common that when it comes to helping out another person, it's almost like it's subconscious. They just gravitate towards being in service to that brother a little bit. I'm not going to say more, but it's like more second nature that they go to them and try to come together on projects and help them. So I'm not condoning that. I'm saying, okay, they doing that. Do we need to do? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that that's the reality. The reality of the situation is people often find themselves in these situations with their countrymen dealing with those issues that are unique to them. It's like they come to it's like a neutral playing field when it comes to just being Muslim, praying, fasting, and so on and so forth. Once it's just like going home. We all may go. We may take our families out. All of us may take our families out together. And this is my last statement. We may all come outside, take our families out to the park, and everybody pulls up in their car or their minivan or their SUV, get out the car, go into the park, and everybody plays together. One big happy, Muslim community. And then at night, what happens when it's time to go home? We don't just get in mixed cars and go whichever direction. No, I go get in my car, my family. This brother get in a car with his family, that brother get in, and everybody go home. And now you have individual things that you're dealing with within your house. It seems like in a lot of cases, okay, that and this is kind of going to another discussion, but again, my last point is that it seems like in a lot of cases that the communities are very similar. There is a neutral, playing field where we all come together. We're all Muslims. We have these general issues that affect us as a ummah, as a whole, or as a community, as a city or a state or whatever, as a whole. But when you keep breaking it down, there are going to be some issues that the people that grew up, that they may have the same immigration status as me, the same political status in whatever country that we're living in as me. They may have the same struggles or domestic disposition that as me, and we're not necessarily unifying on those issues, but we're connected in a different way to this brother you know, because of the similarities and the things that we may be struggling through simultaneously, I may be connected to him a little differently than I'm connected to somebody who we don't really have anything in common other than the fact that, alhamdulillah, we both Muslim, we both pray, we both fast on Ramadan and all of that. So we'll come together as a group on that. But when you start to break down and we get to these little idiosyncrasies that each community has, sometimes it's like it's almost impossible to avoid acknowledging that and dealing with it without being nationalistic and without being racist. Well, yeah, I mean, dealing with brothers that's coming from prison, I think that's one of those issues here in the West and the urban communities that we're going to find ourselves just, you know, kind of just dealing with that on our own. That's just the way I see it. And Allah knows best. Barakallah fikum.
I don't want to. I see one of the elders already took off. That's why I don't want to.
But I was in that of Na'am, Barakallah fikum.
Yeah, I don't want to keep our elder because both Tawfiq and Abdul Hafid are not at their homes.
Yeah.
So I don't want to prolong this any longer. My final comment would be for the brothers and sisters to subscribe to the channel for obvious reasons. Stay updated on the next episodes of Heavyweight Dialogue, and hopefully the brothers and sisters benefited from what was stated. And with that, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu